Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Day 2 of free agency, and so the Titans are continuing along their merry way. And I have to say this. I guess I've been a little detached lately from maybe the general public in some way or another. I don't know. This is the first daylight savings time window period, whatever you want to call it, that I have had a child. So for 34 and a half years, so that's what, 69 daylight savings times in my life, I have been completely unaffected. Gaining an hour, losing an hour, gaining an hour, losing an hour. I have a 3-month-old. The clock goes up an hour, and Ian, I'm still screwed up from it. Like, it's Tuesday. This happened on Sunday, and I'm still screwed up from it.
Welcome to the old man club.
Unbelievable. They should get rid of it and never bring it back. But so with me being detached, I haven't been listening to what everybody's been saying about the Titans and free agency. I haven't been. And so today I got on Twitter. And when I got on Twitter, Javon Holland, a safety who averages 1 interception a year, signed a $15 million a year deal with the Giants. And Titans Twitter had a complete and total meltdown. Oh my God, what are we doing in free agency? Oh man, we're not doing anything. We suck. They signed a tackle yesterday. Again, I don't know, average tackle. Not a good tackle. Not a terrible tackle. You've been through terrible tackles. Titans Twitter, oh God, oh no, he sucks. $50 million guaranteed. Oh my God, he sucks. What are we doing? What are we, oh God, I don't know. So let me just for a second take the side of the Titans, which if you listen to this program often, you know I don't always do. But I've always said I'm an umpire. I call balls and strikes. If it crosses the plate and it's in the zone, strike one. When it comes to the Titans, as of right now, and I say as of right now because if the Titans turn around and do something stupid, then I reserve the right to change my opinion. But as of right now, the Titans are doing what they should be doing in free agency. They overpaid for the one guy that was available at the one position that they absolutely had to fill. And that is assuming that they're drafting Cam Ward. They signed a green dot inside backer to a whatever contract, $7 million a year, who actually knows what the contract's going to say, whatever. Again, $7 million, you're paying Kenneth Murray, who's an okay player, $7.5 million, whatever. You signed a green dot inside backer. Last year, I spent the entire free agency period yelling and screaming about what you were going to do at right tackle. And instead of a solution at right tackle, because I assumed that they were going to take a left tackle with their 7th overall pick, who I was hoping and praying was going to be Joe Alt. But I assumed they would go tackle at 7, and they still need a right tackle. And everybody kept telling me, it's March, Jared, who cares? Or Bill Callahan will fix it. Everybody kept telling me those things. I kept saying, you don't have a right tackle. Well, guess what? That problem's been solved because J.C. Latham's going to play right tackle, and Dan Moore, who, again, is a starting caliber tackle, will be starting at left tackle for the Tennessee Titans. You are a better team today with Dan Moore starting than you would have been with Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, starting at right tackle, which was the plan last year. This time last year, the Titans didn't sign a green dot inside backer, and they kept saying, oh, it's not a big deal. Who wears the green dot? Ernest Jones got traded. He was the green dot inside backer. Ernest Jones got traded, and all of a sudden, it was a complete and total tire fire. The Titans overpaid the one guy at the one position that was available that they had to fill. They've got the green dot inside backer. And now they're just waiting for everyone else in free agency's market to drop. That's the smart decision. That's what smart teams do. And again, some Titans fans and fringe media are out there just completely pissing their pants of impatience because the Titans let a safety who averages an interception a season go to the Giants for $15 million a year? How dare they? Yeah, I'm sorry. My football team must just not be as smart as the Giants. Here's the deal with free agency. If you sign somebody early, oftentimes you overpay. When there's one guy on the market, you have to overpay. Years ago, Jacksonville overpaid for Christian Kirk because there was one guy on the market and they had to pay the suck tax in order to get him to go to Jacksonville. There are plenty of average receivers that are available on the market right now. So why go out there to overpay one of them? Which is what Jacksonville did yesterday by giving Diami Brown $10 million, which was like, I don't know, $8 million more than he's probably worth. Just wait on the market to go down on some of these guys. A couple of guys will get picked off, but that's fine. There's like 9 of them. There's 12 of them. There will be somebody there in a couple of weeks who you can sign for meager funds. And assuming the Titans are taking Cam Ward, which is what I'm doing, they have holes at wide receiver, guard, tight end, safety, and edge. Trust me, there are plenty of guys out there they can sign between now and then before you get to the draft. And the longer you wait, the more the price goes down. And it's crazy to me because, again, for about 3 years, maybe even longer, I've been screaming when it comes to the offseason. And I see the Titans ignore positions like right tackle or go into the draft with numerous holes or just take a risk and sign a backup from Philadelphia in Andre Dillard to play left tackle. This year, they're not doing that. This year, they targeted one guy and they said, look, there's one available tackle, maybe 2 if you count Cam Robinson in Minnesota. But Cam Robinson's older, and Cam Robinson commits more penalties and has had PED suspensions. There's one guy who every week for the last 4 years has played left tackle in the NFL on a playoff team. You have to overpay. They did. What the Titans didn't do was say, oh, wow, PFF says this safety's really, really good. Even though he doesn't really intercept the ball, let's go pay $20 million to go get this safety because ESPN.com thinks we should get him. Which is exactly what happened, which is exactly why these Titan fans on Twitter are all mad that the Titans didn't sign Javon Holland, who's fine, but is not a superstar. And again, did not lead the NFL in interceptions, does not provide you with something that you probably don't already have. This has been, and again, it's day 2, so I reserve the right to change my mind if the Titans go out there and do something stupid. This actually seems like a disciplined approach. It seems like we're trying to build the football team the right way and not just make our fans happy in March approach. And that's what I believe in. What happened last year was let's just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and tell ourselves every day why it'll work. Let's ignore every single red flag with every single one of these guys because it makes us feel better in March. You guys do realize L'Jarius Sneed has bad knees, right? But Jared, why would you bring that up? That's not fair. He's a star. He played 5 games last year. I'm not worried about winning titles in March. I said, if you guys want, I'll go to the trophy shop and I'll go get you an off-season team of the year award for last year. You're picking first in the draft today. There are times to overpay. There are times to sit back. And there are times to be aggressive. It's not a one-size-fit-all thing for every single free agent. But in reality, the Titans, again, And I don't know if this is Mike Borgonzi. I don't know if this is Chad Brinker. I don't know what it, to me, it looks like they've got a disciplined approach. Again, I would have gone after Sam Darnold, and he'd be my starting quarterback because I would have offered him a lot more money than he got from Seattle. And so he would be my starting quarterback, and now I'd be done at quarterback and at tackle, and I'd be able to trade the number one draft choice. But that's just a difference of opinion. As far as the approach, this looks like a bona fide, legitimate approach. This looks like how a real football team does business this time of year. So enough with the crying, Titans fans. Last year, Rand Carthon scratched every itch that you had when it came to free agency. How'd that work out? Right now, the Titans have holes, but there are plenty of guys out there to fill them, and that's before you even decide what you want to do technically at quarterback. So I'm starting off today defending the Titans. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. We are back streaming today on Twitter, which is good to know. But, of course, great numbers yesterday on YouTube, so we'll put that link out there as well. 615-737-1025. And coming up next, I got some bad news for Brian Callahan. And I guess I'll say bad news for Bill, too. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. Hiller takes great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. No one wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency. And most of the time, you don't know what it'll cost or if it will get fixed correctly. Gosh, that drives me crazy. Or if someone is just trying to sell you something, that drives me nuts too. When you call Hiller, their experts are going to solve your problems quickly. And the price you're told is the price you will actually pay, with no hidden fees and no surprises on your bill. And I know all of this is true because I use Hiller at my home. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Do like me. Book online at happyhiller.com right now. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
I think it's an easy decision for me because I don't have time. Just given the current climate of the NFL and how we fire coaches every year, we fired 10 coaches in the first year in the last 10 years.
Yeah, Brian almost didn't make it out of this year.
So so if I'm that guy, do I really want to draft a young quarterback that I'm not quite sure about, okay, and roll for 24 months and lose a lot of games and go through the turmoil and the struggles and the adversity and maybe lose my job? Or am I going to bring in somebody who's already been through that, who's already been through the fires, and who's a little bit more refined, a little bit more prepared, a little bit more ready? So to me, it's either Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones. Of the guys you gave me, that's my choices. Make a decision. It's one or the other. That's it.
So
I'm not going down. Mac Jones doesn't work for me. Justin Fields doesn't work for me. It ain't going to work for Brian Callahan or Bill either. It's between those two guys. There's your answer.
that was Rich Gannon at the Super Bowl, and bad news for Brian Callahan and Ian. Bad news for Bill, too.
Oh, big coach.
Rich Gannon's guys. Sam Darnold, off the board. He's gone to Seattle. Daniel Jones, off the board. He's gone to Indianapolis. Justin Fields, off the board. He's gone to the Jets, although Fields clearly was not a Rich guy. Doesn't do it for Rich. The Titans aren't interested in Aaron Rodgers. They're not interested in Russell Wilson. And so before you start talking to me and calling me about Aaron Rodgers or talking to me or calling me about Russell Wilson, it's not going to happen. What about Jared if they draft Cam Ward and have him sit behind Russell Wilson? What do you think of that? They're not going to do that. Paul has already said they're not going to do that. So who are they going to sign at quarterback? My answer, who cares? Cam Ward is going to be their quarterback. Period. They're going to draft Cam Ward with the first pick. On draft night, we have a draft show, and I don't know how we're going to do the whole 3 hours of the draft show because we're going to know, what are we, Ian, 6 weeks out right now from the draft?
Yep, I think so, yeah.
So we already know who they're going to pick. I mean, so we're going to get there. We're going to be at Twin Peaks like we were last year. It's going to be the whole crew, and we're going to say, okay, what do we think about? Well, we know who they're going to pick. Then we'll just play the press conferences and the cuts, and then we'll talk about it all day for 3 hours as the whole rest of the first round gets drafted. Cam Ward's a quarterback. And if Cam Ward fails in 2 years, everyone will be fired. Just like I predicted after the Will Levis pick. I said, if this doesn't work out, Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel will be fired. And the end result, it didn't work out, and Rand and Vrabel have both been fired. Did anyone worry this time of year about who Washington was going to sign to play quarterback? Or did everybody just assume, well, they're going to draft Drake May or they're going to draft Jaden Daniels, and that's what they're going to do? Did they sign Marcus 5 minutes into free agency? I don't know. Because that's where the Titans are. So all these names that have kept coming up over the last couple of days, Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, and I saw Robbie Stanley had a tweet, and he said, if I have to watch Mac Jones play quarterback, I'm not going to. I actually think his tweet was, if I have to watch Mac Jones play quarterback, we should all call him by his middle name, which is McCorkle. That being said, Mac Jones isn't going to play quarterback for this team. He might be on the team, but he's not going to play. The quarterback is going to be Cam Ward. That's where the Titans are. They've made it abundantly clear. And Terry McCormick yesterday sent out a tweet saying the Titans view Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback. Well, then they're going to take him. Cincinnati didn't trade off of Joe Burrow because they viewed him as a franchise quarterback. Kyle Shanahan traded up 3 first-rounders, literally lit them on fire in order to draft Trey Lance because he thought he was a franchise quarterback. If you think Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, you take him. Now, here's why this is bad news for both Brian and for Bill. Because if the Titans take Cam Ward, they're probably not going to win a lot in year one. Again, I know we talk about the GM all the time, but he did have some pretty good wisdom, right? And he used to always cross his arms and say, you're not going to win with a rookie quarterback. And I said, well, but Ben Roethlisberger won as a rookie quarterback, and it did not sway him at all. Last year, Jaden Daniels won as a rookie quarterback. C.J. Stroud won the year before that. But guess what? The odds are not in your favor. Most of these guys do not win significantly as rookie quarterbacks. Period. So if they don't win a lot in year one with Cam Ward, and Cam Ward is not Jaden Daniels by anyone's measure, most year one rookie coaches, rookie quarterback coaches get fired when they're especially not on their first year in the job. Think about this. Go back through all the quarterbacks that have been taken. And how many times did that quarterback that coach get fired well far in advance of the quarterback? Last year, we had 6 quarterbacks taken in round 1. One guy didn't play, J.J. McCarthy. So we had 5 quarterbacks. 2 of those coaches, pick 1 and pick 3, already fired. When you drafted Marcus Mariota, not even a year into it, coach, fired. That's how this league works. John Fox was the head coach of the Chicago Bears when they took Mitch Trubisky. A year later, fired. Matt Nagy was the head coach of the Bears when they took Justin Fields. A year later, fired. Matt Eberflus was the head coach of the Bears when they took Caleb Williams. Fired. That's how this works. Most coaches that don't come in with the rookie quarterback usually get fired right away. But for some reason, a lot of Titan fans today have just been screaming and moaning and complaining about quarterback. What are we going to do, Jared? What about Aaron Rodgers? What about Russell Wilson? They're not interested. The Titans are not interested. Paul is telling you, if you look at his Twitter, PK, the BNN, the Brinker News Network, he's telling you they're not interested in Aaron. They're not interested in Russell. They weren't interested in Geno. They weren't interested in Sam Darnold. They weren't interested in Daniel Jones. They're telling you, Jeremy Fowler brought up Zach Wilson's name last week. Paul brought up Mac Jones and Jameis Winston. Cam Ward is going to be the quarterback. And anyone they bring in is going to be a backup. And anyone they bring in to be the backup is not going to start because Cam Ward is going to start. And they're not going to bench Cam Ward in order to play the backup, even if the backup plays better than Cam Ward, because they're investing their entire careers into Cam Ward. So it's bad news for Brian and it's bad news for Bill because it probably means the coaching staff is all getting fired for the most part. Unless Cam Ward is Jaden Daniels, which again, nobody right now is claiming that Cam Ward is going to be Jaden Daniels, except for some Titan fans on Twitter that are like, well, the draft gurus didn't like Mahomes either, and look at that. PFF didn't have Jaden Daniels high on their board, and look at that. Again, no actual analysis of the quarterback, just the people were wrong about that, so they should be wrong about this too. That's like taking a quarterback at 199 and saying, well, everybody slept on Tom Brady. So that's going to be the quarterback. Whoever comes in is going to be the backup, and who cares who the backup is? And unfortunately for Brian Callahan, he's probably getting fired. This is unfortunate. And by the way, let's not talk about the fact that this is going to be kind of this recurring cycle when it comes to Titans coaches and quarterbacks. They're going to fire Brian Callahan at the end of the year. They're going to bring in a new coach to coach Cam Ward, and so he's going to learn a whole system this year and then have to go learn a whole new system next year, which I'm sure is just great. So it seems to always work for these young quarterbacks. The ones where they're constantly changing things and firing people seem to always work out for the quarterbacks, which is why the Titans set themselves up to fail. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. There is one Titan free agent that I would actually like to see them bring back. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it is to me. And I think they need him. And I wouldn't overpay too much, but I'd overpay maybe by about $1 million. I'll explain who that is next, and then we're right to your phone. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman & Company on 102.5 and 106 for the game.
fans in the league office want you to spend. They want you to get out there and spend that money. Don't save it to sign your quarterback. Don't go. Let's go all out. There's only so much money. The bottom line is spend it wisely. I think the team that I looked at yesterday, I say to myself, who did a pretty good job of spending wisely? New England Patriots. Pretty damn good. Elliott Wolf knows what he's doing.
There you go. That was Bill Polian saying, hey, spend your money wisely, hyping up the Patriots. And there may be another player that is in play for Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. Ian, did you see this? We have some breaking news here on the program. So I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really know who this person is, but it seems like he's got some good information. The Tennessee Titans are not tendering Ryan Stonehouse a contract. This is coming from Chris Thomason, who tweets out, and let's see, Chris Thomason has 39.9 thousand followers, and he covers the Broncos for the Denver Gazette. And Chris Thomason says, Agent John Perla tells the Denver Gazette that the Titans won't tender ex-Colorado State punter Ryan Stonehouse, and he'll become an unrestricted free agent versus restricted, which the lowest tender, the right of first refusal, would have been $3.26 million. Quote, thanks to the Titans for the opportunity. We understand teams make difficult decisions, and they're going to move on. So I bet there's going to be, and I just like to call this out right now, I think there's going to be a lot of complaining, a lot of wailing, a lot of belly aching over the Titans letting go of Ryan Stonehouse. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I did tender when I did the free agent plan on Friday. I did tender a contract for Ryan Stonehouse because I figured, you're probably better off with Stonehouse at $3 million than you are bringing in a couple of undrafted free agents and letting somebody punt the ball. But there is no doubt over the last couple of years, the Titans punt coverage has been absolutely freaking atrocious. And a big problem with that is probably the guy punting the ball. Now, clearly the special teams coaches have been part of the issue, Ackerman and Anderson, but they're both gone. And while I think the Titans are a more personnel-driven team, where they want their committee of general managers to make decisions as opposed to their coaches, I do think the committee of general managers is probably responsible for why Bones Fossil, who is the special teams version of Bill Callahan when it comes to reputation around the league on special teams, probably said, hey, I think we can go in a different direction with a different punter. I don't think they're going to spend any money on a punter, but they'll probably bring in 3 college kids and they'll probably work them out, try them out, and then whoever punts the ball the best in training camp will get the job, and that guy will make $900,000 as opposed to $3.26. It's not the end of the world that the Titans are getting rid of Ryan Stonehouse. But I do think that it kind of goes back to, the Titan fans like Stonehouse because when Stonehouse got here, he kicked the crap out of the ball. And I remember that training camp where it was him versus Brett Kern. And I kept saying, I'd go with Brett Kern because this was when the Titans were still supposedly good. And I kept saying, I'd go with Brett Kern. And everybody kept telling me, but Jared Stonehouse is the man. He punts the ball 95 yards every time he kicks it. Well, here we are 3 years later, and they're moving on from Stonehouse. Brett Kern was your punter for about a decade and a half. You'd only had 2 punters for 24 years or whatever it was, 25 years. You had only had 2 punters. Stonehouse was a 3-year thing. He was injured. He was okay. Stonehouse, the one thing that he never did that used to drive me crazy is he could never do what Brett Kern and Craig Hintrick could do, where they had a special skill. When you needed it, they could give it to you. With Hintrick, there were kind of 3 different things. Number 1, Hintrick could absolutely punt the crap out of the ball. Number 2, he had that knuckleball where if he was punting from around midfield, as a Titan fan, you wanted to punt the ball because you're punting from around midfield. Craig Hintrick kicks that knuckleball, and that poor rookie returner for Jacksonville is under it like, oh, crap, how do I catch this? And you might get a fumble out of that. It was great. And then Hintrich could also, in a pinch, kick field goals, which was a very nice skill to have. Kern had this unbelievable ability. Like a golfer with a great short game, Kern had this unbelievable ability to drill a punt and have it just die at the 6-yard line. I've never seen anything like it. All Stonehouse could do is just kick it as far as he could every time. And in the NFL, you can't really do that. So the Titans are moving on from Ryan Stonehouse, and I'm sure he'll get a job, but I'm just not sure that Ryan Stonehouse, of all the moves that upset me, this one doesn't bother me in the least. And again, I'm trying to get out in front of this because tomorrow's the deadline. If the Titans do not tender Stonehouse, I can just see the belly aching now. Oh no, what about Stoney? And I'm not sure I care about that. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Will on Music Row says, Jared, I've got a friend that thinks we're screwed and we need to start tanking for Arch Manning. I'm starting to understand what you're saying about the general Titans fan. I don't think many people realize how little it takes to win in the AFC South. Good decision-making gets you there. Good decision-making can also be not making a move for a post-prime veteran. Here's what I don't think a lot of people seem to understand. Because if I ask you right now, okay, how much better are you if you had Sam Darnold or Geno Smith over Will Levis last year? You won 3 games last season. Ian, how much better? How many wins do you think you're better if you had Sam Darnold or Geno Smith last year instead of Will Levis?
Instead of 3, you probably get to maybe like 7.
Okay. So now let's go over these games. Do you beat the Chicago Bears week 1, Ian, if Geno Smith is your quarterback?
Probably, yeah.
Do you beat the New York Jets week 2?
Quite possible, yeah.
Do you beat Indianapolis at home when Will Levis threw for 95 yards and you lost by 3 points?
You'd like to think so.
Do you beat Jacksonville the 2 times you played them with Mac Jones at quarterback?
Well, I'll give him at least 1.
I mean, I think I'd probably give them both. Those were close games. And I mean,
one
the
was
first
10 to
one
3,
was 10-6.
right?
Yeah.
10-6 or 10-3, yeah.
And Levis was just atrocious. Point being is that before we even get to the other Indianapolis game, right there, the Titans have picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we're at 8. And that's before we even get to the other Jacksonville game and the other Indy game and the Green Bay game where Levis started by throwing a pick 6 in the first quarter, or the Cincinnati game where Joe Burrow turned the football over, but Will Levis gave it right back and got benched, or the Houston game at the end of the year. You see what I'm saying? Like, just competent quarterback play puts you right there at 8 or 9 wins to begin with before we even get to any of the other positions. That's like, take out Levis and you still have PT, and you still actually win some of these games, even with PT, sorry ass at right tackle. Well, now you just got a real left tackle, and so you're already better there. Now, look, Cam Ward's probably going to do some dumb stuff, because I watched Cam Ward play in college, and Cam Ward, unless Cam Ward is so smart, and maybe the meetings reveal this, unless Cam Ward is just so smart that he's saying, hey, in college, I know I can kind of shake and bake around some of these guys and still get the football off. In the pros, I'm going to have to probably go hot a lot quicker against the blitz, and I recognize that. Unless he can actually do that, which, again, I don't think many people can. Unless Cam Ward can do that, he's going to do some stupid stuff this year too. But it can't be as stupid, in my opinion, or it shouldn't be as stupid as it was in the past. And that's before, again, we talk about paying $15 million for a safety. You already have an $8 million safety. Why do I have to pay $15 million for another one who doesn't intercept the ball? But apparently that's what Titan Twitter wants. And I already know Titans Twitter is going to go crazy about this Ryan Stonehouse front. One texter says it's already happening on Titans Twitter. Said I'm with you on Stonehouse. All right, more of your phones. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Plus the one player that I do hope the Titans keep. I'm not worked up about Stonehouse. There's one player that I do wish the Titans would keep. I want to get to him next, and then we're right back to your phones. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Here's the other part too. And I know it's not foremost for people. They opened their brand new stadium in 2027. They need to make those moves that generates that excitement about opening a new stadium with their team. Opening a new stadium is exciting enough, but you got to bring something else with it, right? So these people are fired up about going to this new stadium, buying the tickets, doing all the things you want. And remember, Nashville is now one of those cities where a number of people who are outside of that region have come to settle. And what do they bring with them, Bruce? Their other allegiances.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just hit Nashville and become, hey, I'm automatically a Titans fan. You got to win over your own city. Things are different because the city has grown exponentially with a bunch of us Yankees coming in and settling there. And now it's not just, hey, the Tennessee team is here, root for them.
That was Charles Davis saying the Titans have to do some sexy things in free agency, which is a sentiment I understand. I don't necessarily agree with it. I do kind of worry that the owner might be one to say, well, we need to make sure, guys, we're going to sell tickets. But I don't care about that. I care about building a good football team. There's one guy on the team that I actually would like to see the Titans bring back, who is one of their own free agents. It's not Dylan Radins, and it's not the ever-popular Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. It's Daniel Brunskill. I've been thinking a lot about this over the last couple of days. Daniel Brunskill, in my opinion, is an absolute culture guy. When Mike Borgonzi took the assistant general manager position, which is what I am calling him now, because if Chad Brinker's the one negotiating the contracts, he's the GM. But when Mike Borgonzi took the chief assistant general manager job, he talked about when we were in Kansas City and we weren't very good, you know, we didn't go out and get a bunch of free agents. We got culture guys like Anthony Fasano who came in here. And I think about Daniel Brunskill and I'm like, that's a culture guy. Played hurt in 2023, sat the bench without a single complaint last year. And the Titans have a bunch of young players on the offensive line. Skoronski's in year 3. Latham will be in year 2. Dan Moore's in his 4th season, and his first year is kind of a somebody with expectations. They need a veteran guy like that in the room. Secondly, Lloyd Cushenberry is no sure thing to be healthy for the start of the season, and he absolutely won't be ready for the offseason program and training camp. And guess what? Those things are critical because you'll have a rookie quarterback. And finally, Daniel Brunskill plays all the positions, and he plays them at a will not get you beat level. 400 snaps at center last year, 700 at right guard in 2023, 300 plus career snaps at right tackle. He's a fine backup. And there's a real value in Daniel Brunskill. He's 31, so he's not some old pop when you give him a 1-year contract. But I say offer him $2.5-3 million and it'll be fine. But as I look at the Titans roster, I think that's a guy you keep. Veteran guy, knows Bill Callahan, can play multiple positions, can, if he's the starting center for the offseason program, can work with the young quarterback. That's a guy that I kind of highlight. And I'm like, that's the kind of guy they need back. Again, it's not as sexy as Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who scored all those touchdowns, but it is to me a guy who I think is a valuable piece of trying to build this puzzle the right way. 615-737-1025. One texter says, I hope the Titans truly believe that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback and they haven't talked themselves into it. There's no way to know this, but I find it very odd that the Titans went to the combine with every single person and their grandmother believing they were either going to trade the number 1 pick or they were going to take Abdul Carter. Now, maybe some of that was because Adam Schefter tweeted out the Chad Brinker generational talent comments without context, and so that kind of blew up. But just the way the Titans were positioning themselves, it felt like trade. That's what it felt like. Then they come back from the combine, and there's no talk about trading, and now it seems to be obvious they're going to draft Cam Ward to be the quarterback, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I hope the Titans look at Cam Ward and say, that is a franchise quarterback, period. But nobody else, for the most part, seems to really think that. Louis Riddick, to his credit, does. But there's just a lot of, well, Cam's the best in this class, but... And that's the kind of stuff that gets you fired. Well, he's the best in this class, but... And I hate that, as far as I'm concerned. One texter says, I am concerned about the edge rusher position. Of all the ones where there are, a bunch of veteran free agents where, let's say there's 9 guys that are all past their prime, but they all can still play a little bit, like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's past his prime. He can play a little bit. Keenan Allen's past his prime, but Keenan Allen can still play a little bit. DeAndre Hopkins can still play a little bit. There's all these guys at receiver. Just wait them out. And in the end, say, what do you think? 1 year, $5 million. Done. They get to wait like 4 weeks before you do that, but you could do that. You did that last year with Quandre Diggs. Of all of those positions, edge rusher is the one where I'm a little bit like, are there those guys out there? I mean, I'm still a little flabbergasted over the fact that the Titans still have Arden Key on the team. They get rid of Harold Landry, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But what about Arden Key? He is freaking worthless. Talk about a freaking bum. And yet I guess he's still on the team. One text says, hey, Jared, how about the Titans trading the number 1 pick to the Giants for number 3, their first rounder next year, and a second-round pick? That comes from Lester. Lester, trading's over. They're not trading. They're drafting. Cam Ward will be the quarterback. Again, they're telling people he's a franchise quarterback. Once they decide that, it's over. Once they let Sam Darnold go, once they let Daniel Jones go, once they let anyone who was legitimately capable of being a starting quarterback, once they let those guys go, they're done. They're moving on. Dylan says, so if the Titans take Cam with the first pick, are they saying they're committed to Callahan for at least 2 years? Because it would be stupid to fire him after 1 year and then pair the new coach with a rookie quarterback that he did not select. Let me say this. It has been made known to me that the Titans, even before Mike Borgonzi was hired to be the chief assistant general manager, it was made clear to me that the Titans did not view drafting a quarterback with the number 1 pick as a scheme-dependent decision. Now, let me say this. I think that's stupid. What they think is not what I believe. Because I agree with you. I don't want any changes for this young quarterback. But again, I'm not Amy, and, well, we've seen what Amy's way gets you. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on this program. That's 615-737-1025. The Colts are done with Anthony Richardson. They won't say it, but they're saying it. And if you remember, I loved Anthony Richardson coming out. And I've got some thoughts. We'll get to that coming up next. Join 102.5 and 106.3 The Game for an SEC watch party as we broadcast live from 9 to 6 tomorrow at Mellow Mushroom on Broadway, Assembly Food Hall on Thursday, and the Pub in the Gulch on Friday. On-site coverage of the SEC men's basketball tournament is brought to you by Toyota, Guinness, thenewcumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle and ATV. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. And you heard in Ian's update there, the Indianapolis Colts, a one-year, $14 million contract for one Daniel Jones today. I was a little surprised by that. Now, there have been some rumors about the Colts and Daniel Jones, and the Colts have gone to the combine and said they wanted to get some competition for Anthony Richardson. But today, the Indianapolis Colts said it without saying it. They're done with Anthony Richardson. Boy, Pat McAfee was all excited celebrating the great Daniel Jones going to the Colts. And I've thought a lot about this today. As many of you know, I was banging the table prior to the 2023 draft for Anthony Richardson. If I were the Chicago Bears that year and held the number one draft choice, Anthony Richardson would have been the pick over C.J. Stroud. I wanted the Tennessee Titans to trade all their future guards and right tackles to move up to number 3 with Arizona and take Anthony Richardson. And I would have rushed to the podium and I would have said, Ryan Tannehill is our starting quarterback. Indianapolis didn't do this. Indy says they want competition, but I doubt it. Anthony Richardson will start, but by week 3, Daniel Jones will be the quarterback of the Colts. That's how it is. Indy probably views this as a win-win-win because either, 1, they've motivated Anthony Richardson to get the best out of him. 2, they get a reclamated Daniel Jones. 3, they'll stink so bad they get the number 1 pick next year. They'll clean house, fire everyone, and start over. And yet, I have a hard time putting these Anthony Richardson failures on himself. Everybody, including me, who wanted to take Anthony Richardson with the number 1 pick, knew Anthony Richardson was a project coming out of college. He only started for 1 season. He was 20 years old. But the Colts treated him the same way Washington treated Jaden Daniels. Like he had made 60 starts in college and was 24, 25 years old. They got him hurt right away with an inexperienced coach calling QB sweeps for him. I had a very veteran coach, a former NFL head coach who was an offensive side of the ball guy who called me and said, I'm watching the Philly coordinator who's now the head coach in Indianapolis. He's getting the young guy killed. And then he was out for the year. They ran him out there in year 2 expecting a jump when he hadn't even been in the building his rookie year. And now they've brought somebody in Daniel Jones to come in there and take his practice reps. And while you may not think it's a big deal in year 3 that Anthony Richardson's going to have a cut in practice reps, guys, he's 22 years old. And the way we look at things in the NFL is if a guy plays well, if that's what we see, it's all because that guy's great. We never think about the coaching. We never look at the situation the guy gets put in. We always look at it as Mahomes is great because he's Mahomes. As if he was destined, no matter what team drafted him, that he was going to be this huge superstar. Not that he went to a place in Kansas City with Andy Reid as the head coach that had a plan for him to sit behind Alex Smith and to bring him along slowly and develop him, and that's played a role in why Mahomes is so good. We don't ever talk about that. You know, Steve Young looked like one of the biggest busts in the history of the NFL. Then all of a sudden, he sat on the bench with Bill Walsh as his coach, and next thing you know, Steve Young's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Everybody knew Anthony Richardson was a project. I knew Anthony Richardson was a project. But I guess the difference was I had the luxury of working every day with somebody who drafted a high-end, physically gifted, talented project quarterback and brought him along slowly, which culminated with this quarterback winning league MVP. And that's what had to happen with Anthony Richardson. Steve McNair sat the bench for 2 years after being taken 3rd overall. And he did not start in the NFL until he was 24. And at 22, Indianapolis is already going to give up on Anthony Richardson. And when it comes to the Jets and the Colts and these teams, I'm starting to form an opinion. And it goes along the lines of my divorce theory. Plenty of people get divorced. It happens. I've never been married, but it wouldn't shock me if one day I got married and I got divorced. But then it's one thing if you get divorced and then you find somebody else, you get remarried and live happily ever after. Or if you're the person who gets married and divorced 5 or 6 times. When it comes to the Jets, Geno Smith sucks, Sam Darnold sucks, Zach Wilson sucks, and now Aaron Rodgers sucks. I don't know. Maybe you suck. Because Geno Smith and Sam Darnold have gone elsewhere and won a lot of games. And with Indianapolis, it's hard for me not to look at them and say, maybe you're the problem. When you had Bill Polian and a generational Peyton Manning, who's probably the 3rd or 4th greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL, it looked a lot different. But since Peyton Manning, they had Andrew Luck, who also was a generational talent. They should have won multiple Super Bowls with Andrew Luck as their starting quarterback, and they screwed it up. They botched it. Ryan Grigson, the general manager, couldn't get an offensive line. Andrew Luck, because he got battered and beaten, lost his love of football. And with that, the Colts have been rather terrible ever since then. Phillip Rivers was fine for 1 year. Carson Wentz stunk. Matt Ryan stunk. And now Anthony Richardson stinks. Again, just like the Jets. Maybe you suck. Like maybe that's the issue. And I say this. My plan for the Colts was the exact opposite of the Colts plan. I said on draft night when they took him, I said the only silver lining as a Titan fan is that Indy might screw it up. Again, they screwed it up with Andrew Luck. If you can screw it up with Andrew Luck, you might be able to screw it up with anybody. And on cue, knowing that Anthony Richardson would have to sit the bench, if I was the general manager, I would have run to the podium and I would have said, Gardner Minshew is our starting quarterback. I would have had Gardner Minshew as the starter, Sam Ehlinger as the backup, and Anthony Richardson would have been inactive on game days until the end of the year if we were out of it, and then we play him a little bit. That's it. Bring him along slowly. Instead, Jim Irsay goes to the podium. Well, I think with a guy like Anthony, you have to put him out there right away. Why? Because you want to ruin him too, the way you ruined Andrew Luck? And maybe Anthony Richardson would have never worked out. And no matter who his coach would have been, or whatever system they would have developed in men, or whatever players they would have gone and gotten to help out Anthony Richardson, or whatever, maybe he would have sucked no matter what. I don't know. And if I were GM, I'd be packing up my office because, again, I'd have gone all in to get this guy. But everything would have been the exact opposite over the last 3 years. If I was running the show, than what Indianapolis has had over the last 3 years. And there is no way how to prove who's right or who's wrong. I used to ask Floyd all the time because he drafted Vince Young. And I used to ask him all the time, what happened with Vince Young? Because many people remember Vince Young as a bust. We remember the stories about him and Jeff Fisher, and we remember the fact that he spent all the money at the Cheesecake Factory and bought those Southwest planes, whatever. And every time I'd ask Floyd, he'd say, all I know is when I was GM, he was Rookie of the Year and going to the Pro Bowl. Whatever happened after that, I don't know. Translation, they screwed him up. Indianapolis played Richardson before they should have. They got him hurt. His star tailback, Jonathan Taylor, who he should have been handing the ball to 35 times a game, started his career, Richardson's career, in a contract dispute with the team. They've never gotten him a tight end. His receivers are average to below average. And now they're cutting at 22 years old. They're cutting his practice reps, and they're ready to give up. I think it's ridiculous. just ridiculous the way that they brought this quarterback along. And I'm pretty sure if Indy had drafted C.J. Stroud, they'd have screwed it up. But with Richardson, everybody knew he was a project. Everybody knew it was going to take time. And immediately, Indianapolis went and screwed it up. And today they're saying, no, we're better off with Daniel Jones. Boy, that'll work. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones. Plus, one thing I would consider, if I was the Titans, and another team, I'm trying to figure out what they're doing too. We'll get to that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This is how I feel. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Okay.
Yes.
Titans-Bengals playoffs 2 years ago. Tannehill throws the interception to start the game. I turn around and I kick the chair. And I am more mad now than I was then. When Evan McPherson made that field goal for Cincinnati and that ball went through the uprights and I just walked out. I was at the game with my friends. I didn't even say goodbye. I just walked right out. And all I could say the rest of the night was, I hate the Titans. And it's because of stuff like this that I hate the Tennessee Titans. Congratulations to the Indianapolis Colts. Manning, Luck, Richardson.
Well, they ain't got to deal with Richardson this year. He's going to have to sit and wait for a year. So, people, if y'all can only see this, Jared Stillman has his head.
Oh, don't worry. They can see it on the stream.
They can see it. His head is on the table. He's in disbelief.
That was draft night 2023. Feels just like yesterday, though a lot has changed since draft night 2023. The great Mike Vrabel now coaching somewhere else. But I say this because I am kind of thinking about this Anthony Richardson thing. And I think Indy's done with Anthony Richardson. I mean, Pat McAfee, who's tight with the owner, Pat McAfee was on TV today basically celebrating, we got Daniel Jones! Yeah! And I thought, oh my God. I'm like, this organization, Indy, the same guys that screwed up Andrew Luck, they screwed him up. And then I thought about the Titans because I still see the talent with Anthony Richardson. I mean, some of the throws that Anthony Richardson has made over the 2 years that he's been in the NFL are just unbelievable. He's got talent you can't coach. And he is 22 years old. But because the Titans are absolutely taking Cam Ward, there's no shot that they could consider bringing Anthony Richardson in. But if the Titans really want to move the draft pick, then I wouldn't totally rule out trying to go get Anthony Richardson. And I don't know exactly how I'd want to play this. Like, I'd want to get somebody who started in the league that would be the quarterback, and Richardson would be there too. And then I could kind of assess where Richardson needs some help and kind of go along the way. But I could go for it if I trade the pick. If Cam Ward's here, then I need a veteran quarterback behind Cam Ward, and the whole thing's about Cam Ward, and we're moving forward with Cam Ward. And if I had to pick straight up right now between Cam Ward or Richardson, even though I don't really like Cam Ward, I would take Cam Ward. Somebody texted into the text line yesterday and said, you liked Anthony Richardson. How'd that work out for you? And I'm like, if I liked a car when it was sitting on the car lot, somebody else bought it, took it, and crashed it, that doesn't mean now all of a sudden I want to buy that car again. And that's what's happened with Anthony Richardson. But I have thought about this. Let's say you really wanted to trade the pick. Or let's say Aaron Rodgers chooses the Steelers, which I think Aaron Rodgers will, because they've got DK Metcalf, George Pickens, they win more games. I mean, you know, the Giants suck, and Aaron knows it. So let's say Aaron picks the Steelers. Now what are the Giants going to do? Cam Ward, again, represents their get-out-of-jail-free card, but they don't think they can get him because you look like you're going to take him. Well, now, would the Giants be willing to trade heaven and earth to move up to number one? And then you could say, well, hey, this year we're kind of rebuilding the roster and we'll see at quarterback. Then you could get Anthony Richardson. And if I did that, the guy I would do that for, I would not trade anything of value for Anthony Richardson. I would not trade a 5th-round pick. I would not trade a 6th-round pick. Ian, you know what I would offer the Colts to try to get Anthony Richardson?
Picker or player?
Player.
Traylon Burks.
I'd offer Will Levis. They liked Will Levis.
Okay.
Jim Irsay said, he said that if Richardson wasn't there at 4, they would have probably traded back and taken Levis. And so that's what I think I'd call Indy if, again, I was trading the pick. If I'm trading the number 1 pick and I'm going the Jameis Winston route, I could do this. and then see if there's really meat on the bone still there, or if Indy has just completely ruined him, or hey, maybe Richardson doesn't have the makeup, the personality to be a good player. Well, again, I haven't invested anything in it. I got rid of my Mayo pitch, man. I don't need one of that. But it's all kind of moot because I feel like the Titans are going to take Cam Ward. And when you take Cam Ward, at that point, it's like, okay, this is how we have to go. 615-737-1025. And our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. One texter just says, the Titans will not draft Cam Ward. Ian, let me ask you this question, because I'm a little more over the top, I should say, probably than you are. Fair?
Okay, sure.
What percent certainty do you have that the Titans are going to have Cam Ward as their quarterback next year?
Percent certainty?
Yeah. Like, how confident do you feel that Cam Ward's going to be the Titans quarterback? Like, I've already guaranteed it. I'd say I'm at like 92%.
Okay, so it guarantees around 92. I'll probably go like 40.
Really? You think it's more likely than not that Cam Ward's not the quarterback?
I think so, yeah.
So what do you think? Who's going to be the quarterback?
I don't know.
They're not interested in Rodgers. They're not interested in Russell. So who's going to be the quarterback? You're giving me you think it's 60% that Cam
I'll go
Ward
60
is not
field,
going.
40, 60 field, 40 Cam Ward.
So what do you think they're going to do?
I have no idea. But as far as like the starter week 1, I'll go 60-40.
Well, I mean, starter week 1 is if they draft Cam Ward, like, I'm talking like, are they going to go in the Cam Ward direction, or are they not?
Well,
like, if they trade the pick to the Giants, they're not going the Cam Ward direction.
Well, if they draft Cam
Hunter,
Ward, he's going to be the starter week 1, right?
I would assume, but again, who knows? The guy running the show, the real general manager of this team, is from Green Bay, where they sit quarterbacks. But yes. Joey from Bellevue says you should be happy the Colts are incompetent. We don't want them to be good. I agree, but I also think Anthony Richardson could have been special.
Well, Richardson did tap out that one play.
Yeah, and I thought that the Colts handled that horrendously, which was, if that's what happened, if Richardson was tired and he tapped out, Shane Steichen, this is where being a head coach and having head coaching experience and not just being a play caller with your giant sheet in front of you matters. Shane Steichen should have stopped that. Like, he should have told Richardson, hey, you're going to say your ankle was bothering you, and we're going to say your ankle was bothering you, because now the narrative is that Anthony Richardson is a punk who has to come out when he's tired. And that's where, again, he's a 21-year-old at the time. You've got to say, okay, hold on, we're not gonna run you under the bus for this, but that's what the coach is supposed to be there for. But Indianapolis is so incompetent, they hire these bozos that don't know how to stop problems before they happen, which is unbelievable. One texter says, don't you think the Titans should have been more aggressive in getting a quarterback, no matter if they're drafting a quarterback or not? I feel like they're not, or they would have one by now, but they should go after Brissett or Winston. You can always get some Scarbini backup that's a legitimate backup quarterback. The guy I keep highlighting is Brandon Allen, the former Arkansas quarterback who was with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati and also with Brian Callahan, was in San Francisco last year. I kind of highlight him, but there's about 55 different guys that you could pick from that could be that backup to Cam Ward. But I think the quarterback's going to be Cam Ward. I can't believe Ian thinks it's more likely than not that Cam Ward is not the Titans quarterback. I can't get over that. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. Ian, did you see the contract that Christian Fulton signed today?
I heard it was with Kansas City. 2 years?
Kansas City signs Christian Fulton to a 2-year, $20 million contract with $15 million guaranteed. The same Christian Fulton that let guys run right by him for touchdowns when he was here. And I think I'm starting to have a little bit of a, trying to think the right way to say this, a recognition that completely goes against the narrative that most people around the country believe. And we'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tune in later today to 94.9 The Fan for Vandy Baseball as the Commodores host Valpo. Pregame begins at 4:15, first pitch at 4:30, and coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
I played here for a long time, and there's a lot of people in this area that were saying, they didn't get any big name guys other than Milton Williams. But the players they signed, I looked at, and having known Mike Vrabel and the type of coach he is, they got a lot of players that fit what they're looking to do. And so whether it's Mac Hollins or Harold Landry or Robert Spillane or obviously Milton Williams, they're spending money in places of quality and the type of people they want.
That was Brian Hoyer on Sirius XM NFL Radio talking about the New England moves. And everybody in New England's kind of pissed off because New England, like the Titans, they spent all last year telling themselves, we're going to have $100 million in cap space. We're going to have the most cap space in the league. And they thought they were getting T. Higgins. I mean, I remember for a year when the Titans were 2-4 and trading away Kevin Byard, Titan fans were like, but Jared, we have $100 million in cap space next year, and we're going to go get T. Higgins. And New England has lived the exact same life. So I saw today Christian Fulton just signed a new contract, a 2-year, $20 million contract with $15 million guaranteed. Add that to the $18.25 million that Elijah Molden got from the Chargers, and even Theo Jackson. Ian, do you remember Theo Jackson?
Didn't he go to Tennessee?
Tennessee, 6th-round pick. Theo Jackson got $12.6 million over 2 years from Minnesota.
He flashed in camp and then got cut, right?
I think he flashed a little bit, and then I think he was on the practice squad, and Minnesota plucked him, and now he's got $12.6 million. Add in the fact that Malik Willis last year as a starting quarterback had a 124 quarterback rating and won more games as a starter than Will Levis. Every time the Titans, they flash up a graphic about these drafts, all Titan fans do is get on Twitter and bitch about John Robinson. Oh, he was the worst. Oh, screw you, J-Rob. Look what you did to our team with these terrible drafts and terrible draft picks. And yet, and I'm not going to give him credit, I'm not going to absolve him of blame on the Caleb Farley one because that was bad. And the A.J. Brown trade was the kind of move that gets you fired. But every time everyone says, oh, J-Rob, he's the worst. Look at these picks. And then I turn on the TV and I see Hassan Haskins scoring touchdowns for the Chargers. And I said this to somebody last week when Theo Jackson signed his contract. And I didn't watch Christian Fulton play for the Chargers, but I guess he's good enough for Andy Reid. I mean, you just hired a general manager to be assistant general manager because from the Chiefs, because you want a little of that secret sauce, they just signed Christian Fulton. And I said this to someone last week in which I said, look, did John Robinson screw some things up? Absolutely. John Robinson screwed some things up. But maybe it wasn't the John Robinson picks that were as bad as the great Mike Vrabel's inability to coach some of them. Again, every year, it's all about the narratives, right? And this is what drives me crazy about narratives and reputation in the NFL. Narratives do not matter during the regular season, during the playoffs. It doesn't matter. All that matters is what you do on Sunday. The narrative on Jalen Hurts doesn't matter. Is he a game manager? Is he an elite quarterback? Is he a great player? None of that matters on Sunday at 3:25 on Fox when they're playing Tampa Bay. Because he's going to go out there and play, and the play will speak for itself, and it doesn't matter what the narratives and beliefs are. It doesn't matter. Again, the football will decide who wins. But in the offseason, narratives matter. When choices are being made about who to sign, who to hire, who to fire, narratives matter. John Robinson won 61% of his games. He had 2 winning seasons and rebuilt the worst team in the league into a playoff winner before Mike Vrabel, the great Mike Vrabel, even showed up. And yet the narrative is that John Robinson sucks And the great Mike Vrabel is so great that only those hillbillies in Tennessee screwed it up. Again, this is what drives me crazy about these narratives. Everybody thinks Sam Darnold sucks because of a one Monday night football game where NFL Films ran something they should not have run, in which he said he was seeing ghosts. But back to the great Mike Vrabel. When everybody that you draft doesn't work out, and everybody blames the guy drafting the players, and then those players go somewhere else and play significantly better, at what point do we look and say, hey, hold on, maybe you're the problem? Not to absolve Robinson of blame. I've said this. I've gone on record and said the problem with the Titans was after the 2019 AFC title game run and after the 2021 season where they played 90 players and got the number one seed in the AFC playoffs, everybody stuck their heads up their asses. Amy, John, and Vrabel. Everybody got arrogant. But at the same time, the narrative is Robinson sucks, good riddance, and the great Mike Vrabel can do no wrong. And here we are in free agency. And we see Mike Vrabel, who is in charge of the Patriots, spending a boatload of money on Harold Landry and Robert Spillane. And it's free agency, and most people don't know anything about Harold Landry and don't know anything about Robert Spillane, so they just shrug it off to, he had 9 sacks last year, I guess, so he must be okay, he must. And I'm sitting here saying, you're going to rebuild the Patriots with Harold Landry? Again, the great Mike Vrabel. And yet all these guys got Elijah Molden, he couldn't play. Today on Twitter, when I saw Christian Fulton sign that contract with the Chiefs, I said, I thought all those picks sucked. And everyone's like, you said Fulton sucked. I did, because he sucked here, which means the great Mike Vrabel must not have been getting everything out of him. And this isn't one guy. Watch PT will go somewhere else and he'll turn into Trent Williams. Now, look, some of these teams do some stupid things in free agency, and maybe all these guys suck. I don't know. But I just kind of getting tired of watching guys go elsewhere and play better for other teams. When we sit here and say, oh, no. I mean, right now the Titans need a safety. Elijah Molden wasn't good enough for the Titans, I guess. Let's go to Ellie, who's up next here on our program. Ellie, thank you for calling and waiting. You go ahead.
I think the biggest mistake John Robinson did was firing Mike Mularkey and replacing him with Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel could not develop a Polaroid. He was horrible in getting good players and not getting the most out of them talent-wise. He got people to play hard, but doesn't mean they were able to use their talents appropriately. Mularkey helped Derrick Henry use his talents and taught him, run between the tackles, stop dancing. Marcus Mariota won a playoff game by throwing a touchdown to Kansas City. He took a really bad team, Mularkey, and made them better and improved them little by little. Vrabel inherited a good team, and then he tanked them down with a lot of suggestions. I think if we had Mularkey, I think we could have even go further than what we have with Vrabel. Thank you.
So if you talk to the Mularkey coaches, I think it was Terry Robisky said in a piece Joe wrote that they thought that if they had come back for 2018 after they went to the playoffs in 2017, he thinks they would have won the Super Bowl. That's a little rich for me. But at the same time, I go back to the whole narratives. The great Mike Vrabel can do no wrong. And everybody talks about how great the great Mike Vrabel was. And everybody here hated Mike Mularkey. And Mike Mularkey did the real work. This organization was a freaking tire fire. It was worse than it is now. John Robinson, I think, is a good football guy who got a little caught up. And I think he should get another shot, and I think he'll actually do pretty well. But at the same time, Mike Mularkey and his old pawpaws coaching them were the ones that really taught that group how to win. Mariota, Henry, Lewan, Corey Davis, Byard, that group. They're the guys that coached up a Dennis Kelly and got the absolute best out of that bust of Dorial Green Beckham. And yet, because he wasn't Robinson's guy and he wasn't a Patriot and they just kind of kicked him to the curb. And people, they kept winning and they fired him. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? We just lived through Munchak and Hunt, and you guys get a winning coach and you don't like him? And I think that goes back to narratives. Mike Mularkey is going to get Brian Callahan's going to get as long as Mike Mularkey got. Mike Mularkey inherited the worst team in the NFL, and he had a winning record, and he won a playoff game, and he got fired. It's ridiculous. But this is why this is a bad organization. 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. I have Adam Schefter notifications. So when Adam Schefter sends out a tweet, it pops up on my phone. And I keep seeing some of these. And we're getting now to the Scarbini stage of early portions of free agency. 615-737-1025. I have a quick basketball thought. Then we're back to the football and we're back to your phones. And we'll do that coming up next. This week's Nationals Best Deal is Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar. Just in time for the SEC basketball tournament, score half off a $30 gift card and enjoy their award-winning pizza and handcrafted beverages. Visit them in Nashville, Spring Hill, or Murfreesboro. Just visit theGameNashville.com/deals now while supplies last. Tune in tomorrow on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game for Vanderbilt men's basketball as the 12th-seeded Commodores take on the 13th-seeded Texas Longhorns in the SEC men's basketball tournament. Tip-off at 2:30. Pre-game will begin at 2 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at theGameNashville.com. Ian, I believe that I'll be hanging out tomorrow afternoon at Mellow Mushroom downtown on Broadway. So we won't really have a show because if Vanderbilt's going to, again, they say 2:30. So if they say 2:30, tip-off's really going to be what? 2:45, 2:48, something like that?
Most likely it'll be, if anything, it gets pushed back a few minutes. Yeah.
So, and then you take what? 3 hours, 2.5 hours, for the game to be played.
Yeah, I have to see how many reviews, maybe a little bit of a post game. We'll have to see.
Oh, some of the reviews are just freaking in college basketball. Just
it seems to always get worse during the tournament, with the big
awful.
games. Big games,
it's
so
fine.
gotta get it right.
It's fine for the NCAA tournament because, we're so locked in that it's like, show me the 9,000th replay here. But when when there's a game I want to watch and I can't watch it because I have to log into the ESPN app to be able to watch it because this game's gone long and let's check the monitor 15, that drives me crazy. So I'm guessing we won't be on the air tomorrow, but again, we'll be hanging out at Mellow Mushroom downtown. I say this, at least I believe that is the case as of right now. So I say this, and I do not want to poo-poo when it comes to the SEC tournament, because I think there's some pride when it comes to your conference and your team and everything else. And Tennessee is playing for a 1 seed in the SEC basketball tournament. I saw Lenardi said that Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida are all playing for the last 1 seed. I'll believe it when I see it, when the tournament championship actually determines seeding, other than a team getting in or not, the binary automatic qualifier thing. But Lenardi says it, so we'll go from there. But the thing that most people really care about is the NCAA tournament. Here's what's amazing about college basketball. College basketball is a niche sport. Like if you're Joe Rexroad and in October, these teams are scrimmaging each other, you care, but you're the only one out there who remotely gives a rat's ass. For me, I don't pay any attention to college basketball for the most part, except for like my own team-ish until the Super Bowl. Then I start to kind of pay attention. It's a little bit harder now because once the Super Bowl's over, I have to learn all these new teams and players because everybody changes every year. But then the NCAA tournament comes. And in 2 weeks, we will all be experts on every team in the country, every coach, every bracket, every region. I bring this up because apparently the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to push the NCAA into expanding the tournament. And yet the top executives at TNT and CBS, the current tournament broadcasters through 2032, emphasized, this is from awfulannouncing.com, emphasized on a conference call with the media on Tuesday that they are not the ones pushing for tournament expansion. Apparently, NCAA President Charlie Baker said in November that he thinks there's a real opportunity to do something modest in terms of expanding the field. However, CBS Sports President and CEO David Burson and TNT Sports Chairman Louis Silberwasser said on a call Tuesday that the media companies have had conversations with the NCAA to figure it out. Charlie and Dan, the guys that run the basketball tournament, Charlie and Dan have said publicly they're exploring it and that we've had productive conversations with them on the topic. Like with all of our partners, we're in constant communication on all these kinds of things, blah, blah, blah. But Burson went on from there, saying that those conversations are being conducted slowly and deliberately with a focus on maintaining what makes this tournament stand out. It's more in their lap than ours. But as a partner, we work with them to see how we can best maximize it. But no one wants to do anything that's going to negatively impact that tournament, and that's where the focus is. Let me just say this. The commissioners of the conferences want more teams. Brett Yormack, the Big 12 commissioner, said on Tuesday he wants a 76 tournament team. 70 freaking 6. Do any of you want a 76 team tournament? My team is going to make the tournament this year for the first time in what feels like forever. And there were a couple of years where we were right there on the bubble and didn't make it. And I have never once complained about not making the tournament since it expanded to 68 teams. Because, quite frankly, if you can't be one of the best 68, then who cares? Who cares if you were the really the 67th team and the committee got it wrong, and who cares? Congratulations, you're the 69th best team. What's the difference there? And I am vehemently against adding to this tournament just because, again, I don't think we need to. I think the basketball tournament is fine the way it is. Nobody in the country cares. Next week, everybody fills out a bracket, and then everybody cares, and then the basketball tournament's over, and everybody forgets about anything that had to do with college basketball until next March. And that's the way it should be. And yet these conference commissioners, they want the extra money. They want well, if we can get 2 more teams in and we split the revenue, this will be, just great. Just great. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Titans fans are mad, and they're mad about something that they didn't even know existed 2 days ago. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 105 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Trevor, in less than 30 minutes, Barry Trotz in an hour here on the program. So, boy, I got to tell you, there was a lot of complaining. I was just minding my business, checking Twitter. And there was a lot of bitching from Titans fans and fringe media when it came to Dan Moore Jr., the new left tackle of the Tennessee Titans. Boy, they hate it. They're sitting there saying, oh, no, we paid $50 million for a backup left tackle. Oh, my God. Dan Moore has started at left tackle in at least 16 games over each of the last 4 seasons. Do you know what the definition of a backup is? A backup is someone who doesn't start. So this guy starts for a team that makes the playoffs. 17 games, 16 games, 17 games, 16 games. He starts. That's not a backup. You may think he sucks. He might suck. But that's not a backup. And there's just a lot of people out there that did not know that Dan Moore Jr. existed 2 days ago, that all of a sudden are absolutely livid that the Titans would take Dan Moore Jr. Because Jared, he led the league in sacks allowed last season. I saw an article from The Athletic that said Dan Moore Jr. has led the league in sacks allowed over the last 4 years in the first 4 years that he's been in the NFL. And I find that stat to be incredibly misleading, and I'll tell you why. Andre Dillard, and this is the crux of the issue here. Andre Dillard played 562 snaps at left tackle for the Tennessee Titans in 2023. Dan Moore played 1,127. Ian, I believe that is almost exactly double Andre Dillard's 562.
Pretty close, yeah.
So last 2023, in half the snaps, Andre Dillard allowed 12 sacks. The same, according to PFF, as Dan Moore did with double the amount of opportunity. Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
PT played 621 snaps last year and allowed 10 sacks. Again, Dan Moore Jr. played 1,127. The reason Dan Moore's allowed the most sacks in the NFL over that 4-year period is because everybody who truly sucks gets replaced. Dan Moore doesn't. So it is a little bit of a misleading stat. But what I think is hilarious about this entire thing is, what did you think you were getting? Boys, this is what free agency is. Trent Williams, at 26 years old, after 4 years in the league, is not available in free agency. But Jared, he led the league in sacks last year and has led the league in sacks allowed in the last 4 years. Again, guys that are worse than Dan Moore get stuck on the bench. Titan fans are bemoaning the fact that Pittsburgh has used 2 first-round draft choices on tackles over the last 2 years. They drafted Broderick Jones in 2023, and they drafted Troy Fautanu in 2024. Now, I don't know if Fautanu got hurt last year, if he was going to play, but it doesn't matter. These guys could not unseat Dan Moore. Dan Moore has started at least 16 games each of the last 4 years and has logged over 1,000 snaps at left tackle in each of the last 4 years. He is 26 years old. That on the free agent market equals $20 million. Is he a $20 million player? Of course not. Pro Football Focus says he's a $13.3 million player. But you have to pay 2 separate taxes. You have to pay the suck tax. Why would Dan Moore leave the Steelers that are competitive every year to come to the lousy Titans? And you have to pay he's the only guy on the market tax. You're paying it. That's how this works. And the amount of people that are like, but oh my God, he's not that good. This reminds me of what the Titans absolutely bungled last offseason. Do you guys remember a very popular name on this program? Jermaine Illuminor. When I did the free agent boards, Jermaine Illuminor of the then Las Vegas Raiders was the only guy who seemed to check a lot of the boxes, and this was under the assumption that the Titans were going to find their left tackle with the 7th overall pick, thinking that it'd probably be Joe All, but that one way or another, they were going to take one of these guys. They were going to take Fashanu, Alt, Fawaga, Faltanu, whomever. And Jermaine Illuminor was a right tackle who, for the Raiders in 2023, played 900 snaps, mostly at right tackle, and allowed 6 sacks. And Jason Fitz came on the show and he said, oh, Jermaine Illuminor sucks. And Titan fans said, see. And I'm like, dude, we're talking about a guy who's played over 900 snaps in each of the last 2 years as a starting right tackle. And over those 2 years, a 2-year period, has allowed 9 sacks. That's a starting right tackle. Now, the Giants ended up signing him for $7.5 million or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, you could have had him for so cheap. I was begging to sign Jermaine Illuminor. And Fitz is like, well, he kind of sucks. He goes to the Giants. He's their starting right tackle, then moves over and plays left tackle. When their left tackle got hurt, he allowed 4 sacks last year. I wasn't asking for you to go get Trent Williams. I wasn't asking for you to go get Penei Sewell or Jordan Mailata or Lane Johnson or some of the top tackles in the NFL. I'm not asking for that. I was asking for Jermaine Illuminor because I knew that while he wasn't perfect, Jermaine Illuminor was a legitimate starting right tackle in the NFL. Instead, the Titans completely ignored the idea of adding a Jermaine Illuminor or adding a Morgan Moses or adding anybody else because all of you kept thinking, Bill Callahan will fix it. And I kept saying, starting Dylan Radence or Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, or John Ojokwu was not an option. And Titan fans kept saying, but Bill Callahan will fix it. I'm like, he's not Jesus. He can't turn water into wine. And because they ignored Illuminor when he was one of the guys out there last year, because Brian Callahan said, PT and Jalen Duncan have some traits that we think we can coach up, they now put themselves in a position where they have to spend $20 million to just get, again, an adequate starting left tackle. That's how free agency works. The moves you should be mad about. You shouldn't be mad about the decision to go get Dan Moore Jr. Again, he may lead the league in sacks allowed, but that's also because he gets to play the entire season. PT had 10 sacks allowed last year, and he got benched midway through multiple times. Why? Because he sucked. This guy is a significant upgrade from PT. And J.C. Latham will probably be a better player by switching over to right tackle, which is why most people thought he was going to be the 14th or 16th pick in the draft and not the 7th pick in the draft because right tackle is not as valuable as left tackle. But the being mad at the Dan Moore signing because you don't like his PFF numbers, you don't understand how this works. You don't get the best players in free agency. The Bengals paid Orlando Brown Jr. a boatload of money to play left tackle, and they still have an offensive line problem. Why? Because, again, if you're an elite left tackle, you do not get to free agency. Ronnie Stanley's 31 years old, and he didn't get to free agency. Too many of you do not understand how this works. And the last 3 years have proven absolutely nothing to some of you. 2 years ago, the Titans took a flyer on a former first-round pick who got beat out by a rugby player. But they said, well, he was a former first-round pick. Let's try him out there. Andre Dillard, bust. Last year, PT, we wanted to give him another shot. PT was too good. His traits, Jalen Duncan, their traits were too good last year to pass on Jermaine Illuminor for, again, $8 million. You could have had him. But those traits, they were too good. Ruined your whole season. Now you're paying the price for that with the $20 million you have to pay Dan Moore. The problem with why you have to pay Dan Moore is not Chad Brinker and his assistant Mike Borgonzi's fault. It's Rand Carthon's fault. It's Bill Callahan's fault. It's Brian Callahan's fault. I'm glad the Titans finally have people running the operation who don't have to hear the right tackle story. They get it. They get, hey, this is the only guy on the market, and this is what it's going to cost in order for us to get him. I guarantee you they do not think this guy is going to be Trent Williams. But they know he's going to be better than PT. And to them, that's worth $20 million a year. To you out there that think this is a terrible, you do not understand how the NFL works. Well, Pittsburgh keeps trying to replace him, and they drafted first rounders, and they're putting him out there, and they're yes. Because if he was elite, Pittsburgh wouldn't use a first rounder on a left tackle. Pittsburgh would have re-signed him to a big contract. You have to take average. That's how it works. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025. Plus, a little rumor that I just can't shake. I want to get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Here you go. Here's
does
Goodell.
clean
Here's
it up.
Goodell.
In the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select J.C. Latham.
Oh, no, God.
You know what? The
No.
the liquid in Jared's glass.
Man.
Hey, do you believe
Started out
in?
clear,
Hey, Jared, do you
and now it's
believe?
brown.
Do you believe in Bill Callahan? Do you believe in Bill Callahan?
1,000.
Do you or do you not? But this is a question. This is a serious question. Do you believe in Bill Callahan? Jared?
Yeah, he's going to be going against some athletic edge rushers.
He plays a
But
lot.
physically, can he do it?
Oh, God.
What happened?
great
What?
Rand Carthon said if J.C. Latham doesn't pan out at left tackle, we have guys on our roster we're comfortable with at left tackle.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, God.
Unless it's Peter Skoronski.
Oh, God, I hate this freaking team. The best left tackle they have is their left guard. Their best right tackle is going to be their left tackle. They're all idiots. Oh, my God.
Jared? Jared?
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, man, draft night 2024, the J.C. Latham pick. And Rand Carthon said that he can play left tackle. And Brian Callahan said, he can play left tackle. And if he can't, we'll just move him back to right. He'll be fine. And as I said that night, oh, my God, the Titans are idiots. And here we are less than a year later, and the Titans are moving the 7th overall pick, J.C. Latham, back to right tackle because he's not a left tackle. He's a right tackle. And they are now spending $20 million a year for a below-average starting left tackle. Now, I actually like Dan Moore Jr., and I'm going to tell you why. Because while Dan Moore allowed 12 sacks last year at left tackle, that's still better than what you've had the last couple of years, including, and I just did the math, Duncan and Andre Dillard in 2023 allowed 21 sacks at left tackle. So even if Dan Moore comes in and allows 12 sacks, which is not his average over the last 4 years is 8.5. But even if he comes in and allows 12 sacks like he did last year, this upcoming season, it's still better than what you got out of PT, Duncan, and Dillard over the last 2 years. It actually is better. And then on top of it, I keep thinking back to why they're in this mess to begin with. And the answer is simple. They're in this mess to begin with because of the arrogance of Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, and Bill Callahan. Because Bill Callahan just said, yeah, we just take J.C. Latham, move him over to left tackle. I hear that in my head when I hear those things. And again, anyone that knows ball knows, like, hey, it's really not that simple. There is a difference between right tackle and left tackle. I remember talking to Chad Withrow about this. And I said, well, people keep saying, I trust Bill Callahan more than I trust you, Bill Callahan. And Chad Withrow goes, you know who I trust? Nick Saban. You know who didn't move J.C. Latham off a right tackle? Nick Saban. You know who had a bad transfer from Vanderbilt at left tackle and a true freshman and still stuck with the rotation at left tackle instead of moving J.C. Latham? Nick Saban. Think Nick Saban's pretty good at football, eh? So this is what you're paying for the mistakes that you've made in the past. When you took the freaking guard with the 11th pick. When you didn't sign Jermaine Illuminor last year. When you weren't interested in Morgan Moses last year. You're paying for that today. By signing Dan Moore Jr., who, again, he allows 8 sacks a year at left tackle. Which is not great, but it's a lot better than the 21 sacks that you were allowing before you got him. And if you had just signed Jermaine Illuminor because somebody with a brain like me said, I don't think you guys can coach up PT, then you wouldn't be in this mess right now. But here you are. 615-737-1025. Tim says, Dan Moore only started for the Steelers because Troy Fautanu got hurt last year. Broderick Jones got hurt as a rookie the year before that. Dan Moore is terrible. I watched every game he has played. But you know what ability Dan Moore seems to have? The number one ability in all of pro football. Availability. Maybe Troy Fautanu is better than Dan Moore. I don't know. but Troy Fautanu got hurt. Maybe Broderick Jones is better than Dan Moore. He played right tackle last year and allowed 10 sacks. Dan Moore allowed 12. But you know what Broderick Jones doesn't have? Dan Moore's availability. If there's anything I like about this deal, it's the availability of Dan Moore, knowing that I'm getting 1,000 snaps at left tackle next year and not having to worry about it. PT wasn't available and he stunk. Sam says, RIP to the right tackle story. You are right. The right tackle story is dead and gone, at least for right now. Because this group gets, and look, I'm not in favor. I'm worried about this Cam Ward thing. But at least this group kind of gets tackle and they got it done and out of the way. Ken says maybe Bill Callahan can make Dan Moore better, and he did write it that way, which is why I did that. Can make Dan Moore better. I mean, I think Dan Moore, I'm not worried about Dan Moore. I'll tell you who I'm worried about right now. I'm worried about Latham. Because you wasted a year of J.C. Latham's development by playing him at left tackle. Now, hopefully it'll be like riding a bike and he can just move right over to right tackle. But what the Titans should have done is they should have put J.C. Latham at right tackle last year, and they should have already had a left tackle or whatever, signed Andres Pete or somebody to play left tackle. They should have had someone else play left tackle, and then if J.C. could handle right tackle, then swap him to left. But this is what happens when you put it in the hands of coaches. Coaches think they can coach anything. That's why Brian Callahan watched him tape and thought, we can coach up PT. We can coach up Duncan. Coy in Clarksville says, explain to me how the Saints have money. So the New Orleans Saints, this is from Adam Schefter. The New Orleans Saints just signed Justin Reed, the safety from Kansas City, to a new contract. Ian, I don't have the details in front of me. I don't know if you have them or not.
I believe it was 3 years, 20-something. I don't have them the exact pulled up in front of me, but I get them real quick. Oh, here we go. 3 years, 31.5 with 22.5 guaranteed.
Can you explain to me how it is that the Saints can buy all these players with all their massive cap problems they have every year? Weren't they $60 million over the cap like a week ago? And yet they're able to go out and sign Juwan Johnson to play tight end and sign Justin Reed to play safety. And I don't understand. When is the Saints cap problems going to catch up to them? And I saw the guy that runs the Spot Track website put out there that the Saints have to keep a quarterback they don't want in Derek Carr because of the cap. And I'm like, who says the Saints don't want Derek Carr? I'm pretty sure the Saints do want Derek Carr. That's why they're keeping Derek Carr. Because the lead up to the Saints keeping Derek Carr was everybody saying the Saints couldn't keep Derek Carr because of the cap. How many off seasons do we have to see the Saints sign people before you realize the cap's fake? How many off seasons do you have to see the Eagles go sign people before you realize the cap's fake? It's all about how much money the owner wants to spend. Trevor joins us next. His reaction to the Dan Moore signing, to J.C. Latham moving over to right tackle, and are we sure it's Cam Ward? We'll do that with Trevor, and we'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and company, we got some breaking news on the Titans front. According to Adam Schefter, and when I say according to Adam Schefter, I'm sure that everybody else has this. According to Adam Schefter, All-Pro punter Johnny Hekker has reached an agreement today on a fully guaranteed one-year deal with the Tennessee Titans. Hekker will be reunited with special teams coordinator John Fossil, with whom he started his NFL career with in Los Angeles. Now, I don't know a ton about what Johnny Hecker's been up to, other than, Ian, I remember when Johnny Hekker was in LA, and Johnny Hekker was a weapon as a punter.
I mean, they said he was 4-time All-Pro. That's pretty good.
I don't know what he's been up to as in Carolina. I'm sure it's fine. But when he was with the Rams, because again, we don't watch when
he is 35. He's getting up there.
He's a punter. Who cares? Shane Leckler punted until he was like 50. I'm fine with this. Johnny Hekker is better than the problem I had with Stonehouse was Stonehouse could kick the crap out of the ball, but Stonehouse could not, like the way Kern could punt the ball and drop it down to the 4-yard line. He could never do. Hekker, I'm pretty sure, can probably do some of that. Let's see. According to this, Johnny Hekker had 24 punts inside the 20 last year. When he was in his prime in LA, he was putting it down inside the 20 57 times, which I mean is pretty impressive. Okay, the big news is they've signed Dan Moore Jr. from the Steelers. He will play left tackle. J.C. Latham will move to right tackle. Trevor Mattic joins us now on the program from ESPN. Trevor is presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, Titan fans are all mad because Pro Football Focus says Dan Moore, even though he plays more snaps than everybody else, Dan Moore allowed 12 sacks last year as the left tackle of the Steelers. I think it's a massive upgrade. What do you make of it?
I think it's an enormous upgrade in both positions, by the way, right tackle and left tackle, because now they'll move J.C. Latham, it looks like, to right tackle, which is his more natural position, both from a standpoint of playing that at Alabama and also from a standpoint of his body type. I mean, he is massive. He's got heavy hands. This is J.C. Latham now, and he's a prototypical right tackle, but he's got really good feet. I mean, much better feet than you'd expect for a guy that big. Right tackle, he's got, I think, the better opportunity to dominate. Left tackle, he did some good things last year as a rookie for Tennessee, but he also started to have some of his weaknesses at that position exposed at left tackle. Part of the problem was that when his hands got slapped down, we're talking about Latham now, when his hands got slapped down by pass rushers, he would momentarily stop his feet, while the pass rusher kept his feet going and got around the corner because of it. That happens to a lot of tackles, but it's something that late in the season, opponents scouting Latham saw that, and it happened over and over and over again, and his performance went downhill. At right tackle, I think he's better at that, and he's more natural with his footwork because he's a natural right tackle. So now you've got Moore to step in and play left tackle. He's kind of the opposite of J.C. Latham, whereas Latham is a mauler. Moore is more of a mover, I think you would say, and he is an enormous upgrade. If you take Latham, put him to the right, Moore would be an enormous upgrade over what the Titans have put out at left tackle in recent memory, really for years. And part of the reason is that he's got the ability to mostly stay in front of pass rushers. I mean, it's been well documented that he led the league in sacks last year, given up. But at the same time, he plays for a team that played two quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, who were trying to run around and extend plays and ended up making it more difficult on the pass protection. So you have to give him a little bit of credit when it comes to that. But he overall, from a standpoint of pass protection win rates, last year was 11th out of 66 qualifying tackles in positive win rate. And so that's 11 out of 66. That puts him in borderline the top tier as a pass protector in the NFL. And so the sacks had a lot to do with quarterback, but the sacks also had a lot to do with his technique and things that he needs to work on. Because when he gets beat cleanly. When you watch him on tape, he will overset too much to the outside. And when a defender sees that and cuts inside to take that inside gap, very often he'll just watch him run in there And so he has to fix that. That's a definite sack, not just a pressure. And then his hands, we're talking about more now, the free agent that the Titans just signed to play left tackle. He doesn't really punch hard. He doesn't have a heavy punch. He's more on the outside. He kind of grabs and guides with his hands, and he gets in trouble because of that once in a while. So those are a couple of things with his feet and with his hands that Coach Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, will need to help him get better at. But even with those flaws in his technique, he started for 4 years for Pittsburgh, and he did some very, very good things for Pittsburgh. He's a young guy who is just now coming into his own, and even if he doesn't get better at all, if he just plays like he did in Pittsburgh, he will be an enormous upgraded tackle for the Titans.
You know, Trevor, I was looking through kind of the PFF numbers because everyone keeps highlighting this sacks thing, where he did lead the NFL in sacks allowed with 12. I think some of that, though, was he was given the opportunity to give up 12 sacks. Nicholas Petit-Frere had 10 sacks allowed last year, and then he got stuck on the bench. My thing was, outside of the 12 sacks, he only gave up 3 quarterback hits, only 26 hurries, and only 5 penalties. Cam Robinson, who's kind of the other tackle that was on the board, 49 hurries to Moore's 26, 7 quarterback hits to Moore's 3, 19 penalties to Moore's 5. Those are big numbers to me as well, especially the penalties front. And I just think a lot of Titan fans are just looking at, oh, well, he allows a lot of sacks, he must suck. I think they're overlooking some of these other elements in which your offensive lineman can help and hurt your football team. What do you make of the fact that he only allowed 5 or only was committing 5 penalties last year when Ronnie Stanley in Baltimore committed 15, Cam Robinson committed 19, and Morgan Moses, who's 34 years old, committed 8?
Part of that is because of the way he moves. He's very fluid in the way he moves. And typically when an offensive lineman, especially on the outside, holds in pass protection, the problem is not his hands that he grabs with. The problem is his feet. Because if you stay in front of a pass rusher, then you don't need to hold him. You punch him. But if he gets the corner or if he beats you inside, then you'll reach out and grab him. And when you reach out and grab, or when you grab a bit of jersey and you pull it, it comes away from his body, the official sees that and throws the flag. But those things aren't even necessary if your feet are good enough to stay in front of the guy. And so that's one of the things I think that he has to build off of in terms of improving his technique in other areas. And so that's a very good thing.
Trevor, what do you make of J.C. Latham moving to right tackle? And do you think that this shows that they probably overdrafted him a year ago?
I think that I don't think they did overdraft him a year ago, especially with the intent of moving him to left tackle. That's a premium position. I know that you didn't like that they drafted left tackle Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern at number 11 and then moved him into guard. So that thing is still, in my opinion, a work in progress. But I think one of the reasons they drafted him at number 7 was because they expected him to play left tackle. And I thought that he would be a very good left tackle once he developed there. But he can be a devastating right tackle. That's what he was at Alabama. And really, the biggest mistake you saw from him at Alabama, especially in pass protection, was that at right tackle, he would overset. In other words, he'd have a speed rusher out wide, and he would set so far out wide that the speed rusher would then cut back inside. And that's a problem, but it's also good if you look at it from the perspective of his future coach, because you see that this guy that weighs, 330 plus pounds, this massive guy, is able to overset as a wide speed rusher. So you slow down that set a little bit, have him be more accurate with where he slows down his set and starts the interaction with the rusher physically. That's easier to do than if you have a tackle that's not nimble enough to get out there to begin with. And so that's really nitpicking when you talk about probably his biggest flaw coming out of Alabama. And so I think moving back to right tackle, see, that'll help because, again, I love the Titans running backs. I just love their group of running backs. And J.C. Latham at right tackle as a mauler, especially if they can match him with a better option at right guard, you're gonna have a downhill running attack that's gonna set up play action pass better than it's been certainly since Derrick Henry was running. But even with Derrick Henry, with the offensive line being so bad, he didn't scare defenses all that much. They just piled up to stop it. And so I think the domino effect of moving Latham to right tackle and improving the running game, and he'll be just fine out there, better than fine, I think, as a pass protector. That's enabled because now they got a left tackle. And so the left tackle is not great. Dan Moore, I wouldn't say he's great. I'd say he's a quite good pass protector. He is a pretty decent run blocker who's just now starting to enter the beginning of the best of his years as an offensive lineman in the NFL. Like he's like 26 right now. And so you have that combination, and then you look at right tackle plus left tackle, and you've improved both positions. You get an experienced starter, solid starter, if not great, at left tackle. And now you've got a natural right tackle back to his natural position, J.C. Latham, who he's got all pro potential in my opinion, out at right tackle. So you've improved both tackles. And how long has it been since Titans fans have looked at either tackle and thought, something, we're decent? They haven't been decent. They've been heinous. They've been atrocious at tackle, both tackles. Then they brought in Latham, and now they bring in Moore, and all of a sudden they're going to be better than steady at tackle, which is going to be super weird for Titans quarterback.
Trevor Mattic is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. It feels like they're picking Cam Ward. We'll do that with Trevor next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Trevor Mattic is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, Sam Darnold is a Seahawk. The Titans didn't have interest. The Titans don't have interest in Aaron Rodgers. They don't have interest in Russell Wilson. The names we've heard, Mac Jones and Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is signed with the Colts. Mac Jones, we heard Zach Wilson. He's signed somewhere else. It seems to me like the Titans are going to sign a backup, and they're going to draft Cam Ward with the first overall pick. Let me ask you this question. Are the Titans in a position where Cam Ward can succeed?
They're in a better position now because of the improvement on the offensive line. The running game should be much better next year because of that offensive line improvement. And that'll help play action pass. It'll help pass protection for a variety of reasons. That helps him. The receiving core, they need to add some more pieces to receiver, but there are some interesting options in the draft. And so we'll see what happens from a receiver standpoint. But if they do draft Cam Ward, then I think Ward's success with the Titans will have everything to do with Ward's professional humbleness and not a whole lot to do with his physical capability. There's a lot said about his arm talent, where he can throw the ball into tight windows, off balance, off schedule, sidearm, over the top, under pressure, all kinds of great things like that. And those worked really well for the most part in college. In the NFL, he's going to have to be a little bit more precise in operating within a system so that his footwork is cleaner. A lot of times in college, he'll drop back in a clean pocket and then drift around instead of having clean footwork kind of a thing. Those are things that he'll need to learn. And I'm sure he can learn it physically. The question is, will he have the professional humbleness to submit to coaching and learn to do things in a different way rather than the things that got him to be a Heisman finalist and, if the Titans take him at 1, the first pick of the draft. And so really, by all accounts, at the Combine, he was very impressive in the interview process. Scouts have praised his football IQ. They have praised his leadership. And there's every opportunity for scouts to anonymously say that, he didn't seem to care about what the scouts thought about things he could improve on. I mean, those usually tend to come out as well anonymously, but it's been really good reviews that I've seen, certainly in the interview process at the Combine. So that I think is a really good indication that if the Titans do take him, he will submit to coaching.
Trevor, what do you make of where Cam Ward would sit compared to the previous quarterbacks that were drafted? Because Matt Miller at ESPN talked to people inside the league who ranked the quarterbacks drafted in the first round since 2020, and Cam Ward coming out is only in front of Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, and Michael Penix. That's not great news to have Mac Jones ahead of him, Justin Fields ahead of him, Anthony Richardson ahead of him, Zach Wilson, guys that didn't work out. And is Cam Ward really just a high-end prospect in this year's draft and would not be considered, in your opinion, a high-end prospect in other drafts, or do you think that narrative is overblown?
No, I think that's fair, but, it just depends on what different teams value. I mean, you talk about Bo Nix, for example. He had a great rookie season with the Denver Broncos, drafted in the first round out of Oregon in last year's draft. And the thing about Nix is that, in Oregon, he made some nice throws downfield, but mostly it was shorter throws. And so he completed a really high percentage of his throws, but he wasn't asked to do a whole lot of complex things. And he did some nice ones when he did. But, I think Cam Ward has shown the ability to connect downfield in his last year in college more than Bo Nix did. The thing about Bo Nix is that he has been very reliable in terms of executing the system that he's been asked to do, whereas Cam Ward has been kind of a freelance. And so this is where it depends on what a scout or a coach will want to value. I think Cam Ward, there's just based on statistics, it's a coin flip, 50-50 chance that either he or Shedeur Sanders or any other first-round quarterback is going to succeed with the first team that drafts him. But at the same time, Cam Ward, what he does have is elite arm talent. As a thrower, he is, if you compare him to the other quarterbacks in the last several drafts, as a thrower, there's nobody that I would say is better than he is. It's the other things, the intangible things, where he has to show that he can elevate those to the level of his arm talent. And that will make him an outstanding quarterback because throwing the ball nicely is mildly interesting. The art of quarterbacking is exemplified by what Tom Brady did. And that is doing everything except throwing the ball at a championship level. And then you throw the ball.
Trevor, last one for you. The Titans have signed Johnny Hecker, who was the punter in Carolina. He was with Bones Fossil in L.A. He replaces Ryan Stonehouse. Much more hang time with the Hecker, more punts, even at 35 years old, inside the 20 than Stonehouse. What do you make of it?
I think he's a lot less likely to get his special teams coach fired. Remember that the Titans fired their special teams coach because of all kinds of disasters. One was giving up long punt returns, right? Everybody blamed the special teams coach, so that's part of it. But you and I were texting back and forth over the course of the Titans season last year where there was a long punt return given up. And our text, you and I, included Stonehouse kicked that ball, not just out-kicked his coverage, but he didn't kick it to the sideline to pin the returner into the sideline. He kicked it inside the numbers. So the returner had either way to go. And the problem there is that the punt coverage team is expecting the ball to be pinned into the sideline. They are running a path so that they're only covering 1/3 of the field. And all of a sudden the ball's in the middle and the returner takes off the other way. And now those coverage guys who were heading in the place where the ball was supposed to go have to totally reroute to the opposite side of the field. Now that happens once, okay, but that happened a lot with Stonehouse, and it contributed to the special teams coach getting fired. And the new special teams coach, I'm sure, is going to say, look, whoever's punting for me is not going to get me fired because he won't put the ball where I told him to put it. And I think that has a lot to do with his decision.
Trevor Mattic, as always, is presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters. Trevor, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Mattic on the program. Barry Trotz joined us on Friday after trade deadline. Fans were pissed. Hell, I was pissed. And I think I know what the plan is, but we'll talk to Barry Trotz about that next. Plus, Barry Trotz did kind of hint, it feels like, that Andrew Burnett will be back as Preds coach. So we'll ask him about that too. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. It is 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. The Predators are on the West Coast with a late one tonight against San Jose. And you know what? Before we get to Barry Trotz, Ian, let's give away some tickets. Be caller number 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a pair of tickets to the Predators take on the St. Louis Blues at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday, March 18th. So the trade deadline has come and gone. We now know who's in, who's out. And Predators general manager Barry Trotz joins us now in the program. Barry, we talked on Friday, but since then, another move came down the pipe, which I'm sure you got in ahead of the deadline but didn't share with us. The trade of Mark Jankowski to Carolina for a future 5th-round pick. I guess I then turned around and saw Mark Jankowski get the first star of the game and score 2 goals in Carolina. But I do wonder kind of what went into that one and just your overall feeling now that the deadline is official and everything's passed, how you fared and what you guys did.
Well, I'm really happy for Mark. I mean, that's anytime a player goes to a new team, you want him to have success with his new team. He's a terrific young man, and I just felt that with Mark, I got some pieces there that I think I want to open it up for our young players. As I said, we'll continue to add those young players, adding youth and hopefully some more speed into our lineup. And so I just felt Mark is a really functional player. That sometimes the coaches can, and I have been there, the coaches, take a 21-year-old versus a 29-year-old, and probably have a little more trust in the 29-year-old. So I just felt that spot has to be open for a young guy as well. So I put him in a really good spot where I think he can have success. So I wish Mark all the best. And he's been a very functional player for us.
Barry, I was thinking about our conversation on Friday, and I was thinking a lot about kind of what you said and what really kind of the way I took it. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But the sense I got was a lot of Predator fans look at the moves that were made in the offseason with Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady Shea, etc. And they look at that as, okay, this is the plan for the Predators. And because the team didn't have a good year, the plan is failing. After our talk on Friday, and what I kind of walked away with was this idea that, no. The long-term plan is Matthew Wood, Tanner Mullendijk, Teddy Stiga, Igor Surin, all the guys that have been acquired via trade, whether it's Andrew Gibson or Reed Schaefer or whomever, Svechkov, we see him in the lineup now. He's part of the plan. That is when you got hired and this team kind of tore things down. That was the plan. And that the Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, that was, in my opinion, just a way to give the fans something to watch and be excited about in the meantime. Is that a fair sentiment? And when you feel like the real future of the Predators or the reality of kind of what you're staking your beliefs on is more in those younger guys I mentioned, like Wood and Mullendijk, etc.
Yeah, I would say you're partially and probably 3/4 right. I felt this year with the additions that if we could be in the hunt in that wild card position and get in the playoffs, we'd be a little tougher out by adding those type of players to give us a little more offense, but also bring along our young players as well. So you're absolutely right when you said the future for our team is in the young guys. But at the same time, I still feel that we can be competitive. I still feel that we can surround our young guys to that blend mix, like you're seeing, Evangelista with O'Reilly and Stamkos, and then Michael Bunting, who I hope is comes in and he's day to day, but not today. If that'll be one of your questions. But Michael Bunting, maybe he's playing with Svechkov, and I picked up Verana right now. That he's surrounded by a couple of decent players that can help him have some success and get some confidence, and that blend continues. And then if you really look at it, the players that I did move out, I felt that they were going to be in the way a little bit of some of the young guys coming in. And you're absolutely right. Our focus is on signing, our prospects, be it coming out being a Matthew Wood or those guys when they're ready, that they're coming out, those type of things. We are trying to do that. Our focus is on signing our prospects that we feel really good about. And Matthew is one name that we're excited about. And so that will be that. We will dial into the draft. We've got those 3 firsts and 2 seconds. So I want our staff, and even myself, I'm going to I'm doing some scouting to really dial in those first 5 picks. It will do one of 2 things for us. A, it will give us a really good idea of the specific value, putting values to those spots where we are in the draft. And if we feel, we can get a better prospect or trade for a player in that spot, because we can get that player. A good example would be of the 32nd pick as of today and the 35th pick, because that we can probably get the same player. So we might be able to turn one of those picks into a younger player, maybe a prospect from another team, or we use it and we put it into our player pool. So it's really important that we dial that part in, and then really important that we dial in our prospect pool of who we want to sign going forward, who we want to bring out. We're going to have guys like Mullendijk and Gibson, those guys coming out. Got to make spots for them. They got to have the ability to develop and play. So that's really where our focus is slid to for probably the next couple of weeks, and then also just evaluating from now to the end of the year. Just all the things where we can improve. So that part is all started, and you're absolutely right. It is you nailed it. That for the most part, that plan hasn't changed. It's just we're setting up for the next stage of that plan.
I do wonder, because I know the difference between marketing and selling tickets and building a hockey team. And I understand, in the Venn diagram, it's perfect when you have a really good team with a bunch of star players and it's hard to get a ticket, and that's great. But I do wonder, when it comes to you and the discussions you've had with ownership and management and everything else, when it came to what's really important as far as the Predators are concerned going into the season, was it so much about what the NHL Predators were going to look like this year with the Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, Forsberg, Yossi, etc., and how much of it was really, again, the development of those guys that you have taken over the last couple of years?
Well, I think it was twofold. I mean, I think we felt we had a really good group that could, keep us in the mix, but we also had to make some tough decisions on some of our younger players and some mid-range players. Be it, we have to make those decisions going forward. And the plan has always been to build a team. I mean, we're our top guys are going to age out eventually in the next couple of years, but we felt we still had a window with, a decent window with Yossi and Forsberg and Saros, that you could remain competitive and sort of thread the needle a little bit like Washington has. It's worked for Washington. It hasn't worked for us. So, I think a little bit of that is our back end sort of fell apart a little bit, be it, Lausanne missing a huge portion of the year. I think Roman had an off year, and so we made some moves early, moving on from Faber. We felt we with guys like Wilsby and that we were bringing back a little different element, a little more skating on the back end. So it just didn't change a whole lot. And then probably the biggest move that we made on the back end is Ferrier being an older player who's got 300 or 400 games under his belt, probably in the National Hockey League, and going with a young guy. So those are the things that we had to make those decisions on. And like I said in our last interview, is the only way you got experience is that you've got to take some risks. You got to put players in the lineup, and you got to live with that. And they're going to make some mistakes, but at the same time, they're going to grow. It's very similar to the same path that you look at. Some of the teams that have gotten younger. I look at Anaheim's a really good model. They've added if you look at free agency and you hear the same things, they're going after the same players we are. Their model is they got some young guys they drafted fairly high, and they're trying to surround their kids with good players so that can help them blend and help them be successful. So that's a plan that's fairly similar that I can give you of another team. But you can thread the needle. Unfortunately, this year it didn't work out for us as well as we wanted to. But at the same time, it doesn't mean it was a wrong plan. It didn't work out just based on play, based on maybe a little bit of chemistry not coming together as quick as we had hoped, and some untimely situations, be it our defense getting hurt. I can give you a million different reasons. A shot that post in, post out, and you win 4 or 5 more games, and you're sort of more in the mix. So, but it didn't happen. So we're continuing with the plan and continuing to add youth and speed in our lineup.
Barry Trotz is with us on the program. Something you said on Friday in your press conference after we got done talking got a lot of play over the weekend. And it was when asked about Andrew Burnett, you said that you gave him a tough hand, but talked about how, I guess the quote from you was that you guarantee that he'll take the summer, he'll come back, and he'll be more prepared for everything. Is that your way of saying that Andrew Burnett will be the coach of this team next year?
No, I think everything's for evaluation. I think it's too premature to make that decision one way or the other, and I think it's unfair right now for me to answer that because I do know this, that you have to go through all those experiences. That's the one thing that I do believe is you go through all these experiences, you become a better coach. If it was a situation with a player, you'd be a better player, and you're prepared for whatever comes at you, whatever situation you're in going forward. So, no, I didn't want to tip my hand one way or the other, and I'm not going to. And I think it's unfair, not only to me, because and Andrew and our fans and the players. Our focus should be playing as well as we can, and evaluate the rest of the season and then make a decision at the end of the season. So I think that's a little bit premature on whoever is throwing that out there. And if you took it that way, that's on me, but that's not my intent in terms of that statement.
I have to say, I'm in a very odd spot right now, Barry, when it comes to watching the team play. You guys have won 4 in a row, and yet at the same time, I'm like, now I'm all excited about this high first-round draft choice. I ask you this question as somebody who has said that you will never tank, you will never throw in the towel, you've talked about the way that you play mattering. How much have you taken away from the last week, and what do you make of that, given the fact that I think you've kind of challenged everybody to keep playing in spite of the fact that the team is clearly recognizing the situation you find yourselves in for the playoffs this year?
Well, I don't want to point fingers at anybody else, but I think having the group that understands that winning is important. I mean, let's call it what it is. We play a boys game, if you will, that requires emotion. It requires all those things. But the one thing we all want in this is to win. We want to win a Stanley Cup. We want to win, and to say, it's okay to lose. It just doesn't sit in my gut very well, and it shouldn't sit in our players' gut very well. And if it does sit in their gut that it's okay to lose, then I want to move on from those players. I think that's one of the things that, if you can accept losing and it's okay and it's fine, then you're in the wrong business. You're on the wrong team. And so I try to make that very clear to our guys that go out and play. Go out and play as hard as you can. And I never said, you have to win every game, but if you play as hard as you can, and it usually falls, at least you made the effort to win. And sometimes, it's you don't get the goaltending. Like I thought we played excellent against the Chicago Blackhawks, and we got out goaltended. Their goaltender was great. We hit them in spots that we didn't think we'd hit them, but we had some really great chances, and it could have been a 6-2 game, but it didn't, and then we had to do it in overtime. I'm okay with that. If we would have lost that game, I probably would have been okay with it for the fact that we were the better team, and that's what I'm trying to get to our guys. Go out and try to be the best team every night, and let the chips fall where they may. And I'd rather that, because it's very easy to have a very, we could have all the best players in the world, but if winning's not important to them, then you're not going to win anyways. So I'm out getting on my soapbox a little bit, but that's what I believe.
Barry Trotz, last one for you. You brought up Bunting. You said he won't play today. Is there any idea when he will play?
There's a good chance. I said day to day, but just not today. They're both, him and Zach LaRue had a really good skate. I talked to them both, and we'll see. We'll get them pushed a little bit. They'll have a workout before the game as well, and we'll see how they feel tomorrow. And then they'll skate on Thursday. And then I have a feeling that there's a good chance that one or both of them, I think probably the plan is get one into the lineup on Friday, and then the other one on Saturday, and just go from there. We're at a point where both those players have had significant procedures or whatever. In Bunting's place, he had an appendectomy, so I just want to make sure he's healed up before he starts banging around, because he does play with a little bit of sandpaper, and it's funny because they're both skating together. They both had, if you remember in Pittsburgh, they both had a fight, and I was in the elevator coming off the bus today, and I said, "You guys kiss and make up yet?" And they were laughing that they're both cut from the same cloth a little bit. So I have a feeling they're going to have a good relationship as teammates.
And then last one for you. Do we expect Roman Josi to play again this year? What's his status? I know that he's had a really tough year and obviously a tough injury, but is he going to shut it down for the year, or is there a chance that we see him before the end of the season?
I'm a little bit, quite frankly, I probably say it's TBD. Once we get more information, we've done a lot of tests with Roman. We've seen he's seen a lot of specialists. We're going to take care of Roman Josi because, quite honestly, the best thing for Roman Josi is a healthy Roman Josi. That's not only for him, but also for the franchise. I mean, obviously he's an iconic player for us. He didn't have the year that he expected or we expected. I mean, probably the first time that he won't be, in the top 25 or 30 defensemen in scoring. That's sort of unfathomable for his last 8 years or so. So we want Roman Josi to be healthy and ready to go for next year. But if things fall into place, I wouldn't doubt that he would jump in and play some games this year. But as we get closer and closer to the end, we'll probably see where we are at that point, and that may be a organizational decision.
Barry Trotz, as always on the program. Barry, great stuff. Enjoy it. We'll try to stay up and watch tonight.
Thank you, guys. All right, little coffee late today, and it'll work.
Exactly. Barry Trotz on the program. Though I will say this, having a child, the whole time change, this is the first time in my entire life that this entire time change has done anything as far as I'm concerned. I'm still not. It's Tuesday. It happened on Sunday, and I'm still not completely over it. Okay, Barry says it is that his comments about Andrew Burnett learning from his experience and coming back next year does not mean Andrew Burnett will be the coach next year. Says it is too early to make that declaration one way or another. Keep that in mind. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company. We roll along. 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, we've got some breaking news. I am shocked by this. According to Mike Garafolo, the Miami Dolphins have signed Nick Westbrook-Ikhine to a 2-year, $6.5 million contract with 3.2 guaranteed. So it sounds like a 2-year deal for NWI with really 1 year guaranteed. The second year, basically a Dolphin team option. But NWI finally gone for $3.2 million. And I'm happy for him because he's done all the right things and said all the right things and done a lot of losing. And again, he's an example of the number one ability is availability. But I'm surprised the number came in at 3.2. And I'm also a little surprised that at 3.2, the Titans weren't interested in bringing NWI back. Like, who's the number 2 receiver to Ridley right now? And I don't want to go into the draft thinking, I have to draft a receiver at 35. Because, again, it looks like the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward with the first pick. But I was shocked that NWI signed with the Dolphins. I mean, they got the 2 fastest receivers in the league, and they're going to be turning around, and Tua's going to be throwing the ball to NWI. But at least NWI is available, and I'm happy for him and his contract. But I figured he'd get a little bit more than that. $3.2 million guaranteed for NWI, 2-year deal, $6.5 million. Again, good for him. He was a good Titan, and he stands for all the right things and everything else. And I am shocked, too, that he didn't end up in New England, where they have no receivers. They have a gazillion dollars to spend. And, Vrabel loves his Titan guys. Landry and Robert Spillane. And, I mean, didn't NWI feel like a shoo-in in New England if he didn't come back here? And with all the money the Patriots had, they didn't have any interest in it. I am stunned by it. So make of that what you will. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is a rumor that is out there about the Titans that I want to hit on. And then why I think we all need to kind of breathe in, breathe out where the Titans are as far as their team is concerned. This early in free agency, I'll explain. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
Those first three teams are very compelling to me. All of them need quarterbacks.
Yep.
And yet, Charles, you left Indianapolis knowing this. The quarterbacks are not the best players in this draft. Oftentimes they're not.
No.
It doesn't mean they don't get drafted high. What in your mind does Cleveland do to satisfy this quarterback position?
They have to take they have to take the one they like, and a lot of it depends on Tennessee. What does Tennessee do at one? Do they stick and pick someone? If so, Tennessee has so many different options. Do they take a quarterback? Because remember, Will Levis is still there. We act like Will Levis is gone. He's not gone. He's still there. So Tennessee could, yeah, he's still there. Tennessee could easily say, hey, we go with Levis and we try and figure this out down the road. We try and bring in a veteran. Who knows what they're going to do there? But is it Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State? He's an option, right? Is it Travis Hunter, the two-way player from Colorado? He's an option. Is it Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, one of those two quarterbacks? They are options. So Mike Bargonzi, the new GM, right? Chad Brinker, director of football operation, whatever the title, I think president now of football operations and all that. They have a big decision to make, and of course their phone is open.
That was Charles Davis talking about the options the Titans have. But with Sam Darnold in Seattle, with Geno Smith with the Raiders, with Daniel Jones with the Colts, Zach Wilson, who they're the only ones that have talked about this, Zach Wilson with the Dolphins, it feels like their options are dwindling. It feels to me like they're picking Cam Ward with the number one pick. And now, Ian, we've got some rumors as far as Mason effing Rudolph is concerned.
Yeah, we do.
So if I never saw Mason Rudolph again in my life play a snap of football, I'd be okay with it. I'm sorry. Like, I don't see this being something where I'm on my deathbed saying, God, I wish I had just seen Mason Rudolph play another game. Well, apparently on Twitter, there's one of these aggregator accounts that says the Titans have interest in Mason Rudolph. Now, Dejan Kovacevic, who has covered Pittsburgh forever, has got his own website there that you got to subscribe to, kind of like PK. Dejan Kovacevic says the Steelers have reached out to Mason Rudolph for a return. The Steelers have reached out to Mason Rudolph, eyeing a return to the quarterback position that's currently vacant. A source in the Rudolph camp told Dejan Kovacevic this afternoon. Omar Khan's expressed to that camp a willingness to have Rudolph, a free agent who spent last season with the Titans after his previous NFL career was in Pittsburgh, be part of the solution in Pittsburgh, possibly behind a different starter, possibly Aaron Rodgers. So I would just say this on kind of the Mason Rudolph front. I would not rule out him being back next year as the backup to Cam Ward. I always talk about the duck theory. At the Combine, Jim Wyatt wrote an article on Titan Stationery with quotes from Brian Callahan about how he would welcome the idea, if it works out, to work with Mason Rudolph again. And I sat back and thought to myself, is Jim Wyatt sitting there in Indianapolis thinking, man, I wonder what they're going to do with Mason Rudolph? Or did they tell Jim Wyatt, hey, Jim, we want you to put this article out about how we'd like to work with Mason, so that way Mason knows we have some interest? Again, I wouldn't be upset if I never saw Mason Rudolph take another snap. I think Mason Rudolph stinks. But if you draft Cam Ward, that's the kind of player you need to back him up. And there's something I worry about when it comes to Mac Jones. And I use Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, and I kind of throw them together because that was what Buck had said yesterday before Zach Wilson signed with the Dolphins. And I think Jeremy Fowler put it out on Friday that the Titans would have some interest in Zach Wilson. One thing that really bothers me about the idea of drafting Cam Ward and signing Mac Jones. So let's say you sign Mac Jones to the bridge contract. 1 year, $5.5 million, and he's the quarterback until they draft Cam Ward, and he's not. The problem I have with this is Mac Jones is not an old guy. Mac Jones is 27 years old. So he's not Mariota, Winston, where like, no. Those guys are old pops, and their ships have sailed. You saw the story that Matt Miller put out there at ESPN, where he talked to league scouts, league executives, and analysts and had them rank all the quarterbacks and where they came out. You know, again, how they see these guys coming out as prospects. Not what they've done in the NFL, but what they were as prospects, which is why Caleb Williams was number 1 and Trevor Lawrence was number 2, ahead of Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, who were 3 and 4, who have accomplished way more than those two. Because, again, this is what you did as a prospect. Cam Ward is 18th. This is every quarterback who was drafted in the first round between 2020 and 2024 and includes Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Ward 18, Sanders 20. Only Michael Penix, Sanders, and Kenny Pickett were behind Cam Ward. So if you sign Mac Jones was viewed as a better prospect coming out. Zach Wilson, who again is off the table, was viewed as a better prospect coming out. And you can't lie to the players about who the better player is because they practice with them. If Mac Jones at 27 is better than Cam Ward at 23, you're going to have a problem. That's why you get the Mason Rudolphs, the guys that are absolutely zero threat. Caleb Williams was the second Carolina clinched the worst record in the league in 2022, or 2023. Caleb Williams was undoubtedly going to be the number 1 pick. And it was this weekend, a year ago, where Pittsburgh ended up acquiring Justin Fields for a bag of footballs. And people said, well, wait a minute. Why does he have to go? Why do they want Tyson Badgett to be the backup quarterback? Because you don't want someone who could possibly be a threat to Caleb in there because you don't want any distractions. The reason I could see the Titans at the Combine putting out there on Titan stationery, if I saw it, the Titans said, hey, we'd like to have Mason Rudolph back, then I'm telling you Mason Rudolph saw it, and that had an audience of 1. The reason they probably put that out there is because they knew at the Combine we're going to take Cam Ward, and we want to make sure that we have a legitimate backup, not legitimately good backup, but like a backup quarterback who can play caddy for our young quarterback, which is what you have to have. The other thing, too, is that this backup quarterback position, when it comes to backing up Cam Ward, which, again, I think is inevitable. And there is a lot of conjecture that, well, what if the Titans were to sign a bridge quarterback like Mac Jones and they were to still trade the pick with the Giants? And they're not going to do that. That would be tanking. They're not going to do it. They just signed a left tackle for $20 million. They're not tanking. Do they think they're going to compete for the Super Bowl? No. But they're not tanking. Not when you do what they did yesterday. Not when you go sign an old-ass punter, the way they just added Johnny Hecker, who, by the way, is the same age as me, so I don't know who I'm calling old, but is what it is. But go back to this with Cam Ward, which is you need a veteran quarterback who can basically play translator, who is a mentor, but not a manager for the quarterback. Floyd told me that Neil O'Donnell was the best thing that happened to Steve McNair because the coaches would tell Steve McNair something. Steve would kind of get it, but Neil was the one who could help Steve get it all the way. That's what you need. You don't need somebody that might actually end up being better than Cam Ward to be Cam Ward's backup. That's going to be a problem. So if I were the Titans, I would probably be interested in Brandon Allen and Mason Rudolph and all these other guys. It also seems almost inevitable that Aaron Rodgers is going to the Steelers and Russell Wilson is either going to the Giants or is just going to be out there. The other thing, as far as free agency is concerned, and Adam Schefter is reporting, and I don't think this is a big deal, but Adam Schefter is reporting that the Titans are not expected to tender Jack Gibbons to an RFA tender. Ian, guess who's going to New England?
Dr. Jack, huh? Dr. Gibby.
Oh, you know Vrabel's bringing Gibbons with him to New England. You know it. Last year I went to one in-season press conference because I had some questions for Brian Callahan about Colt Anderson after the Lions game. And the Titans send up a couple players after every game on a Monday, and they always try to send the guys up there that aren't going to cause problems. So it used to always be Byard. Now it's Skoronski, Cushenberry, Amani Hooker. Like, they really try to go out of their way not to put anybody up there who might say something like, yeah, we suck. They're not going to put Arden Key up there. So last year they put Jack Gibbons up there after the Lions loss, and he was up there just a bunch of, yeah, we have to get better, and we have to work harder, and we have to blah, 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 whatever. And all I could think in my head, and I didn't ask it because I don't care, and it would have been mean-spirited. It wouldn't have been about, something important for the radio show. It just would have been pure mean-spirited. But I really did think about saying, hey, Jack, how much do you think about that block you missed on the punt against Chicago? And if you had made that block, how different this season might be for the entire team? But it did go through my mind. I will not miss Jack Gibbons, but he's at least a little useful. Matthew in Nashville says, so are the Titans going to have any sort of pass rush this season? As of right now, the answer is no. And I am stunned. I'm fine with getting rid of Harold Landry at 17.5. I think Vrabel overpaid at 14.5 for Landry. I think Landry's lost his burst. I don't think he gets those big sacks in the big moments. I don't think he is special anymore. I don't think he ever really was special, but he was solid, and now I'm not sure he's that anymore. But if you're going to get rid of Landry, get rid of that worthless Arden Key while you're at it. Arden Key sucks. And yet everybody seems to think Arden Key's good, and he's still on the team. So I don't know what to tell you on that. The one thing I will say is that pretty much at all the positions of need, there's a bunch of guys out there, and they're all kind of the same. They're all either washed up guys who you could get for a one-year deal, but let them go see if they can get something better somewhere else. And they have that at edge, at guard, and at receiver, and they probably need to sign one of each from all of them, and then draft whoever the hell you want with the 35th pick. Don't say, oh, well, we have to draft the receiver. Oh, we have to draft the edge. Oh, we have to just draft whoever you want. One texter says, the one thing that is overwhelmingly clear is that no one knows how to rate a college quarterback for the NFL. I think one thing that's is abundantly clear is that too many teams are stupid when it comes to putting a coach with a quarterback and making sure it's the right coach and making sure the quarterback is supported. And I mean, I go back to everything the Titans did yesterday with Dan Moore is an admission that everything they've done over the last 2 years, let's see if it'll work out with Andre Dillard. Oh, we think Bill Callahan can coach PT, that they're like, yeah, just pay $20 million and get it to go away. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. The Predators are on the road tonight, 9:30, right here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game at San Jose. The Sharks, they stink too. San Jose 17-39-9. That's bad for 43 points. Meanwhile, the Predators are 24-32-7. That's 55 points. The Predators have won 3 in a row, including an overtime victory the other night against the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, here's what really matters, and I hate saying this, but it is what it is, and that is the Predators need to lose. You know, this idea of them playing well after the deadline, and again, they've given up. They have no shot at making the playoffs. According to MoneyPuck.com, the Predators right now have an 8.4% chance at the number 1 pick. Now, they were around 9-10% last week, and they've been winning, so now they're 8.4. Pittsburgh is 8.1. Buffalo's 8.3. Everybody's kind of in the mix there. Seattle's ahead of you. Chicago's ahead of you. San Jose's ahead of you. What scares me about that when it comes to the number 1 pick is there's 3 guys, and you need one of them in this draft. And if you don't get one of them, I don't know if the guys are going to be able to make it that are trying to build this team and sell us on it. I just don't know if you don't get one of those high picks. So I know the players don't want to lose. I know the coach doesn't want to lose. I know if you're going to stay up until 9:30 tonight to listen to the game right here on 102 for the game, I know if that's the case, then you don't want to lose. But man, that's it for us. Stillman and Company tomorrow. I don't know what time we'll be on. I don't know if we'll be on. Vanderbilt's pregame comes on at 2. The game's at 2:30. Who knows how long the game is going to last? But we probably should be on at some point tomorrow in the 5 o'clock hour. So I guess be tuning in for that. More Stillman and Company is ahead next, though. 102.5, 106 to the game.